There's no time.
The time is
13.
o'clock.
Hello out there. It's episode 134. And guess what? We're talking about another serial killer, BTK.
Yeah, Dennis. Oh, Dennis Rader.
Dennis Rader.
Yeah, he's old petty dictator.
Yeah.
Dog catcher and grass measurer. He'd measure your grass.
Grass measurer.
Yeah, measure your grass and then try to rape you.
Yeah.
He wasn't a good dude.
No.
No.
Well, here's the thing. It's like all of these dudes are assholes.
Yeah.
Obviously. That should go without saying. This guy, I mean, Ted Bundy pisses me off a lot. This guy pisses me off a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think it's just because, I mean, if you watch like the videotapes of his confession, because they videotaped his confession, it's about 45 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Of him just like very calmly like recounting all of the crimes that he committed to the judge.
Yeah, in third person as if somebody else did it.
He did, but he uses kind of like...
Yeah.
He uses like weird, like euphemistic...
Yeah.
Language.
They were killed, and yes, and then she was killed, and
yeah,
you did it, dude. She
was
killed.
It was just really, and he just comes
he
across.
Really said I killed her. She was killed.
And then the one time that I really, really just wanted to like punch him right in the dick was when he was talking about one of the murders, and then at one point he's just like. Like, he was just so bored with everything. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. It's like somebody really needs to, like,
I don't remember that part of it. You sure you weren't reading into it? Maybe he was tired of talking about it or something like that? Or
it could have been, but it really sounded like...
He's probably trying to sound like it was terrible.
Yeah, that's not how it came
but
across.
He's very...
He didn't give a shit.
He was very artificial and very robotic in the way that he acted. And we're going to get into detail, more about Rader.
And the thing about him, too, that creeps me out, I mean, Ted Bundy got away with it for a long time, but BTK, he got away with it for 30-something years. He was married, he had kids, he had, like, a normal life, he had a normal job.
Yeah, he was doing this to other people's families.
Yeah, and he just, like, did it every now and then, and, like, nobody ever... And when they caught him... Every single person that knew him, like in his family, his friends, his co-workers and stuff, were fucking shocked. They could not believe it.
Well, he, put on the face of a fine, upstanding man and an authority figure and a guy who was helping the community. Yeah. But secretly he was BTK.
And I think...
Bind, torture, and kill.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
He gave himself that name, too. So that should tell you something.
Yeah, did he do that, or did the media give him that?
No, he gave it.
He gave it?
Because he was one of those ones that sent, like, the letters,
yeah,
like, taunting the police. And he gave them a helpful list of suggestions for, like, what his name should be. Mm. And one of them was BTK, and that was the one that stuck. The other ones were stupid shit, like... The Annihilator, spelled wrong.
Spelled Annihilator, huh?
Yeah, no, it was spelled the ER.
Annihilator.
And I think it only had one N. I don't know. Yeah. I think he had kind of a learning disability, because that dude's grammar was... I've seen some bad grammar and spelling in my time, but holy shit. Like, he seemed like he could talk, and he, like, had normal intelligence, but when he wrote, he just sounded like a huge dummy.
It was holding him back. His problems were holding him back, and... He couldn't be the man he wanted to be. He wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
He
was one of those cops.
He's one of those guys. I want to be a cop. Which I don't want to. Each culture and each country kind of has a different profile of a guy that wants to be a cop. They're not all bad here in the United States. I think probably on a good professional police force, the average guy is okay. But you also have to consider that the average cop isn't on the job very long, 3 or 4 years, mostly. And he's usually fired or quits.
Yeah.
But he was one of the particular type of guys that wants to be a cop, wants to be a soldier, wants to do this and that, wants to be special forces, but really he can't do it. He's not the kind of guy that can
Well,
do that.
he's just average. He's just like an average dude, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, they're not looking for average guys in elite fighting forces. They're looking for fucking dudes that are...
So it makes them angry that
Yeah.
they're not like better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So when they get like a little bit of power, a little bit of authority, they will abuse the shit out of it.
Yeah, I've also heard civilians, kind of recently argued about people have a right to serve their country, and militaries don't see it that way. Serving is a privilege, and especially in those tough units, it's fucking hard to get in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're in a sea of badasses, and you're trying to be the badasses of the baddest of asses. You got to pass all these fucking rites of passage, all these tests, all these quality control stuff. And guys like this don't they don't have it.
I mean, he was in the Air Force.
That's
but,
easy. No offense to guy, but your average air, that's easy.
But he didn't. Yeah, he was just like a technical, like he fixed antennas.
That's
and
like
stuff.
a regular job.
Yeah, he
dudes
just had
like
a
Rader
job.
want to be cops. They want to be Army Rangers. They want to be Special Forces. They want to be Navy SEALs. They want to be something distinguished. But man,
But they can't hack
They
it.
can't. No.
Yeah.
Physically, psychologically, the motivation, the type of motivation. The guys that can do that real well are not looking for status. They're just kind of driven to do it. You know what I mean? So they're not trying to impress other people.
Well, see, that's what I always feel. I'm like, look, if you were really a badass, you wouldn't have to tell people that you were a badass. You would just be one, and everyone would recognize it. You wouldn't have to say anything.
Rader was the kind of guy to go to a bar and fucking tell everybody he's a Navy SEAL. You know what I mean?
He does seem like that kind of
Man, I used to hear that a lot in bars. I'm a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Everybody's
a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, what class were
It's
you
like-
in? You start asking them questions, and
It's like it's so easy to like check that.
I'm a Navy SEAL.
Especially
yeah, sure
now
you
that
are.
everybody has smartphones. It's like, so some dude comes up to you in a bar and like tries to hit on you and be like, I'm totally a Navy SEAL. Not that most women would give a shit and that would impress them anyway, but you could very easily like look on your phone.
Most
and
Navy
check.
SEAls wouldn't tell a civilian they were Navy
That's
SEAL.
what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Most people that are really cool won't tell people that they're cool.
She can vouch for this. I kept running into a guy at a club, and I had a lot in common with him, and I knew he was military. I didn't find out for sure 2 years later till the dude was SF, Special Forces.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
He wouldn't even tell me.
I know who you're talking about.
He wouldn't even tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very tight-lipped about it.
Yeah, so those dudes,
Even like when you asked him outright, he was kind of,
non-committal. Then I went over to his house one time and just saw him pictures of his graduation photo from the Q course, and there he was. He was a E6.
So he could totally go around saying that he was Special Forces.
Yeah, and it would be true.
But he doesn't do
He wouldn't
that.
even tell me, and he knew I was prior service. He knew I was infantry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't tell me.
I know. We
And
knew
then,
him for like for
she
ages.
knows the dude. She knows who he is. We have friends of ours that did photo shoots with him and stuff too, because he was a photographer. He likes to take pictures.
Yeah.
Fucking girls dressed up in military gear, and it's cool. But anyway, he was. He wouldn't tell anybody he was Special Forces, even prior service guys, and the guy would vanish for months at a time, and then he'd come back.
Yeah.
And he didn't live on a military base. He lived in a civilian house. So, go figure. They don't live on... I don't
Yeah,
think
because we went there one time.
He was... Yeah. And he had full auto weapons and shit like that. Shit that he owned. Because he could.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. You saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a suppressed MAC-10. I reached down and picked it up. He was using it in a photo shoot. It was empty. I did a functions check real quick, and it was full auto. It was firing from an open bolt, and all that shit registered. It was real suppressors, everything. Exotic French shit, exotic French bullpups. It was the real thing. You know what I mean? And then I said, "Dude, what do you do with this shit?" That he says, "Oh, I got a license for all that." And then later, I was walking around his house and saw his graduation photo, and I said, "Dude, you're SF." He goes, "Yeah." So why didn't you tell me? No, I don't talk about that, Jeff.
Yeah.
He's a young guy, and he says, later on, once he kind of confessed, I'm telling Special Forces stories now. He tells me where what he's doing now if I ask, because I know. But he does stuff in other countries, and he comes back and he'll tell me some things about it, but no particulars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the continent.
But yeah, so all of that to say, like, if you were really a badass, you wouldn't have to go around telling people.
They don't tell anybody.
They don't tell anybody about it. That's how that works. So before we get further into talking about BTK, let's just do a couple of really quick shout outs. Faceless Villian Volume 1, the audiobook, the audio has been upgraded and replaced. So if you go purchase a copy of it now, that's the improved audio that I recorded with our new Yeti microphone. So, you know, if you were waiting for some reason, you were waiting for me to finish it, it's up there now. I'm also redoing the Unseen Hand. It's all recorded. I'm just editing it. So that'll probably be a couple more weeks before that turns up. But that'll be improved also. And then, like I said, I'm going to eventually get around to doing my fiction and some other, and, you know, the other shorter paranormal books and stuff too. That'll probably be later on this year because I really want to get started on Faceless Villian 3 so I can get it out before the end of this year. Just like I promised I would, because I said 2019, that shit's going to be out. I wanted one out every year. So I'm going to start working on that. Like I said, I got the outline and everything. I just haven't, like, started cracking down on it. So that's that. And then also, if you didn't see our last movie review, it was Silent Scream from 1979. And again, thank you, Rob, for sending us that movie. I hadn't seen it in many years, and it was kind of cool to revisit it. Also, go check out our Zazzle store. I added 3 new shirts, which I mentioned on the last show. I did a Bulletproof Wolf one, like Skinwalker Ranch. I did a Wandering Womb one, and I did the infamous shirt that we've all been waiting for, the Kukulkan, the Running with Kukulkan shirt.
Yeah. I don't have one yet, so if you guys have one, you beat me to it. I'm going to get one.
Yeah, we're eventually going to order them for ourselves and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good looking shirt. I like that one.
It did. I think it came out pretty nice, if I do say so myself. It took me long enough to do it because I wanted it to be really cool, you know what I mean? Because it's such an iconic part of the show, like that drink, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's all. So let's start talking about Dennis Rader, better known as the BTK killer. Like I said, this bitch is still alive.
Yeah.
He's in prison serving like fucking 750 years or something.
Yeah.
They actually, Kansas does have the death penalty now. It was reinstated in 1994, but because all his crimes happened before 1994, like he wasn't eligible. So they had to give him like back-to-back life sentences, and they wanted to make sure that he would never get out. So, but he's still alive as of this recording.
Right.
So, now as far as I know, like, he was born in a place called Pittsburgh, Kansas, but, you know, when he was younger, his family moved to Wichita, you know, kind of a big city. You know, his parents, he had, like, 3 brothers, and I think his dad was in the Navy, I want to say, or Marines or something like that. Now, they don't really know a hell of a lot about Dennis's childhood. What they do know is stuff that he generally told them, and that can't always be trusted because, like I said, he had kind of that thing where he wanted to be famous, like a famous serial killer. So he would, you know, write letters to the cops, like taunting them. He would write, one letter that he wrote, it was like, he had like mock titles for chapters of like a biography of him. Like if somebody wanted to write that, he's like, here, I helpfully wrote some chapter titles for you. Like that kind of shit. And, you know, so when he got arrested much later on, you know, he was talking about his childhood and stuff. Now he says that his propensity toward bondage and torture happened pretty young. He said, you know, as soon as he could read, as soon as he was like 6-7 years old, he knew that he had a thing for people being tied up and getting off on that.
He's probably into those crime detective magazines.
I wonder, like, the one thing he did say was that he used to watch the Mouseketeer Club.
Yeah. And
that he would fantasize about Annette Funicello, like being tied up and like him torturing her.
Damn. Like
when he was a little kid. He also said that he tortured cats and dogs. Although, like I said, none of his other family members said anything about that. None of his friends or anything like that. So I don't know if that's just something. I mean, it's probable that he did that, and maybe he just kept it a secret because that's something that a lot of serial killers do when they're kids. But I don't know. That's just what he said. So really, he kind of kept to himself. He had friends and shit like that. One thing that a lot of people said about him was that he was, like, unremarkable. He was just, like, kind of a studious guy. One friend said that he had zero sense of humor. You know what I mean? He was just very, very serious, and, like, he wouldn't, like, goof around or anything like that. Which, you know, that kind of checks out. You know, and he wasn't, like, into, like, joining clubs. He wasn't into, like, you know, the music that was around at the time or anything like that. So he was just, but he didn't stand out, really. He was just kind of like, I was watching a documentary about him, and they called him, like, the Invisible Man. He was just kind of this nobody. He was just, like, this milquetoast kind of someone that you wouldn't remark upon.
Right.
You know what I mean? He didn't stand out in any way. So he graduates in 1963. And then he goes to, he starts going to college in 1965. And I think at this stage, he got like an associate's degree in electronics. So it was like 2 years. When he was 21, he joined the Air Force. And he was in there for his, 4-year thing, mostly stationed at bases in San Antonio and stuff like that. Although he did spend a great deal of time at some bases in Japan also. He was in Okinawa, he was on mainland Japan. He kind of traveled around a lot. He said he spent some time in Greece and stuff like that as well. So he, like I said, he wasn't like he wasn't infantry or anything like that. He was like a technical guy. He would like work on equipment. He would work on electric equipment, antennas and stuff like that. And he got up to the rank of sergeant. He got a bunch of medals too. I think he got like a marksmanship medal and a good conduct medal, ironically.
Yeah, those are gimmies.
And shit like that.
Yeah.
So, again, his time in the service, unremarkable. He had friends there, and they said he was just one of the guys, totally normal. They didn't notice anything weird about him or anything like that. So after he gets out of the service, he comes back to Wichita, and in 1971, he marries Paula Dietz. Now, these two were married for like 30 years, and that kills me, that he just had this whole family life, and he had 2 kids with her as well, and he just had this totally normal family life while he was out fucking murdering people.
That's always bothers me, man, that this dude, and dudes like this, will have families and normal family lives. They have a right to these families, but then they deny this right to other people. They go and kill their family
And I'm
members.
sure they don't see it that way, but that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I hate that more than just some incel running around doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's worse. And you know what's shitty too is that, and I actually watched because his daughter Carrie she's grown now, obviously, and she just wrote a book about her experiences like growing up with him, because she didn't know that he was BTK until he got caught like in the 2000s. Yeah. And one thing that she said that really made me very, very sad was that, most people that write to her, like it's now that the book has come out, are very supportive and stuff like that. But you get those percentage of people that, how could you have not known you have killer DNA and all this, and like shitting on her.
Right.
It's like she was a little kid.
Yeah.
How the fuck? Like, here's the thing. If my dad had been a serial killer, there's no way I wouldn't have known.
You probably wouldn't have known.
How would you know?
Especially if he's got a job where he's away a lot.
That's what I mean. And I feel like, even the wife, because people are like, oh, how could she be married to somebody for 30 years and not know? I'm like, that doesn't seem all that crazy to me. Especially because his wife, she also worked. And, he worked, and he mostly had jobs where he was away all day. So
Even
who the fuck knows what he's out there doing?
Even that perverted British couple that had those kids that were murdering those girls.
Yeah.
What was their name? What was their names again?
Wait, Brady and Hindley?
Yeah.
Or Fred
and
Rosemary
Their kids
West.
knew about all the sexual abuse. They were
Fred and Rosemary West.
Yeah, they were getting abused themselves, but they didn't know anything about the murders.
Yeah.
I think until later. I think they realized that I think they found out that the dad had killed that one daughter. He had told her.
Yeah, they weren't sure if he really had or if he was just joking about
it.
Or if he was like just threatening them. Luke,
Right.
I'm going to put you under the patio.
So, they were living there in the midst of it. Several of those kids, I think 2 or 3 of them, and they didn't know.
That's what I mean. It's totally possible. And in the case of Dennis Rader, one, his murders were pretty far apart. He'd do one and then like 3 or 4 months later do another one. Then it'd be like 3 years before he did another one. And he would do them like usually during the workday. Like, he would kind of set it all up during the workday, you know, on his lunch hour and stuff like that. So, you know, and then he would just come home and act like nothing happened. So how the fuck would you, I mean, you would never suspect. Yeah. Why would you suspect that? I wouldn't, you know. That's what I mean. My dad always worked. My mom always worked. If my dad had been out, like, murdering people, there's no fucking way I would have known that. And I don't think my mom would have known either. Yeah. So it's like, so it makes me angry that, like, that people shit on the families, like, oh, well, you must have known. Like, they were responsible for it. A lot of them
don't know.
Yeah, I don't think. And in this case, I'm for sure.
Gary Ridgway's wife.
Yeah.
Gary Ridgway was going out there having sex with rotten corpses and then going back to his wife and having sex with her, evidently. Imagine how she felt.
That's what I
nasty
mean.
Shit, huh?
It's like, you know, it's bad enough, like, that, you know, these serial killers leave these people that they murdered in their wake, but I think people forget, too. It's like their families are also kind of victims because they can't have a normal life now. Yeah. Everyone's going to blame you, or you're always going to be associated with this
We got to do Gary Ridgway, too.
Yeah, we will. We're going to get around it. Like I said, we're trying to do, like, all the bigger ticket.
Yeah, we got 5,000 subscribers now, so we got to do the big
And I've gotten, like, so many, like, requests and suggestions and stuff like that. And I really do try to get around to them all. It's just I have such a huge list, and, you know, we'll get around to
And then writing books, too.
Yeah, you know, but that's how it goes. All right, so he marries, you know, Paula. Now, Paula's 23 at the time. Dennis is 26. And at this point, Dennis was actually working at a grocery store. He, like, worked in the meat department. Like, I don't know if he was a butcher. I don't know what the hell he was doing in there. But he was working in the meat department. And Paula also had a job. She was a bookkeeper, I think, at a VA hospital. So then, about a year later, Dennis goes to work at the Coleman Company. You know, the one that makes, like, the camping lanterns and tents and shit like that. As it turned out, 2 of his future murder victims were also employees of Coleman, although they didn't work in the same facility as him. Now, I don't think he ever mentioned that he saw them at work, or he, like, you know, because he would stalk people for a long time before. He called them his projects, which isn't that fucked up. And he would stalk them for a long time, like, find out their names and where they lived and, like, what their schedule was and stuff. So I don't know if he, like, found them through work or if it just happened, because Coleman was, like, a really big employer in Wichita at the time. So maybe it was just, like, a coincidence that 2 of the victims worked there. I'm not really sure. But he didn't work there for very long. He only worked there for, like, maybe a little over a year. And then I don't know if he got fired or he quit. Because some places he worked at a long time, but I don't know. He kept kind of getting fired from places too. So I'm sure he wasn't, like, the super... Because some people have said he was really, like, a jerk. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Especially later on, like, when he got into more positions of power and shit like that. So then, so he gets his electronics degree in 1973, and then he starts going to Wichita State University, and he starts going to night school. Now, he wants to get a degree in, what do they call it? The cop thing. Justice administration of justice. He wants a degree in that. So he learns all about serial killers, he learns all about crime and stuff like that, even though by all accounts he was a terrible, terrible student. Because like I said, I kind of feel like from looking at his writing that he probably had a learning disability. When he talks, he sounds pretty normal, although every now and then he pronounces something wrong. Like I was watching his confession, and he wanted to use the word ruse. Yeah,
I remember that one.
And he said Russ at first, but then he corrected himself, and then he said it right, like the rest of the time. So like I said, I don't think he was one of those ones like Ted Bundy that wasn't as smart as he thought he was. But like I said,
I think he was trying to imitate a educated, sophisticated person.
That definitely does come across.
He was trying to go outside his vocabulary.
Yeah, you know? And he didn't really know how to do that.
Yeah, I think he'd read that word, but had never used it.
But he never used it out loud. And then when he said it, he's like, "Wait, that doesn't sound right."
And then he went back and did it.
Yeah. Okay, so like I said, it took him about 6 years, but he eventually did get his criminal justice or justice administration or whatever degree. Although, like I said, he was like a CD student, because of his purported learning disability. Yeah. He also worked for Cessna for a short time, but was fired. Now, at the point that he got fired from that job, which was sometime in late 1973, early 1974, so he's unemployed, And he starts getting bored, and he starts thinking about all these fantasies that he has supposedly had since he was a kid about tying someone up and killing them and getting his rocks off on it. Now, unlike Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader actually never raped anyone. What his thing was he would tie them. He got off on having power over them and strangling them, like tying them up, binding them and stuff like that, then strangling them, and then he would jerk off over the bodies.
Yeah.
So he never actually did any penetrative rape or anything like, not that makes it any better. I'm just saying that that's like a dip. So that was like his specific fetish, was more the killing,
if you ask me,
than the raping.
That's a sign of sexual inadequacy. If you ask me, I think he was worried about it.
It might be.
I think he was worried about not being able to perform.
And then it would mess up the picture of it that he had in his mind, maybe.
And it could also be that he may have. When did this start?
74.
He didn't care about DNA.
No.
So that's not what it was.
Thinking about that back
he was
then.
afraid he wouldn't be able to perform, or that he wouldn't be impressive.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. He might have not been a very well built guy.
Yeah.
Which may have added to this whole sexual inadequacy thing. I've seen the photographs that he's taken of himself, you know what I mean? Dressed up as a doll and weird, kinky, taking pictures of himself down in a grave. This is gender bending pictures of himself. Never really explained.
Well, he liked to bind himself also, not just other people. Like, he liked to do self-bondage, and he also liked to wear the clothing of his victims.
Yeah.
And he would do, like, stuff to, like, he would put plastic bags over his head or put tape over his own mouth. Shit like hang himself from and then he would, like, take Polaroid. He had, like, a Polaroid camera that had, like, a little clicker thing on a wire.
Yeah.
And he would take pictures.
It just got me thinking that he has sexual inadequacy issues. If you ask, I think that's where, like, maybe he might be kind of like a self-loathing bisexual, something like that.
I wonder. I mean, it seemed like,
or a self-loathing transvestite. He's definitely dressing in women's clothing.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it did seem like his target victims were women and girls. Yeah. He did kill men too, but only if they happened to be there. But they were just like an obstacle.
But here's the thing: he's killing these women and girls, but then he's fantasizing himself being a killed woman or girl.
Yeah, being in their position.
So it's almost kind of like he's fulfilling a fantasy that he has of him being a woman victim.
Maybe.
So it's like sadomasochism, basically.
The thing about him is that he doesn't, I mean, like I said, if you see his confessions and stuff, he's very dry and, like, matter of fact about it, but he doesn't seem particularly insightful about why he has that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You look at the guy, there's absolutely nothing feminine about him.
No.
Nothing.
And he was actually, and like I said, I hate this whole thing of, like, oh, Ted Bundy's the hot serial killer and stuff like that. But I will say that Dennis Rader, when he was younger, like when he was in the Air Force and stuff like that, was not a bad looking dude. He was just like a normal, okay looking guy. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't have thought he was ugly or anything.
Makes me wonder maybe if he had issues with him becoming in touch with his feminine side.
Yeah, it
you know what I'm talking about?
It could be.
Maybe he thought that made him gay or something, so he was doing weird shit. It's a sexual dysmorphia of some sort.
Because it does, I mean, according to him at least, it does seem to have manifested itself very young, because he said that he did start having these fantasies and feelings when he was very young.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I don't know, like, they don't know a lot about his childhood, so I don't know, like, if his upbringing was messed up or anything like that. It seemed fairly normal. No one ever said anything otherwise.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like people are too interested in his sexuality.
True.
You know what I mean? They're not writing about it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of any psychoanalysis of it, of the cross-dressing and the...
There may be some out there, although I didn't come across it. Like I said,
it's not in the public domain.
Most of the stuff that amazes people about him or shocks people about him is just this double life type of thing, that he just, like, led this totally normal life and no one suspected a thing, and that he was really good at, like, compartmentalizing, and he even called it that.
He could be kind of like a twisted Ed Wood type guy, where he puts on women's clothing, it makes him feel better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then he has fantasies of him being victimized and killed.
Yeah.
In those clothes. It's some weird, get some kinky shit.
Yeah.
It's some kinky shit.
Which, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that...
He's killing other people. Yeah, there's something wrong with it. He's killing other people.
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having that fetish. That's a pretty common fetish. It's just that why did it become warped to such a fashion that it's like you feel like you have to kill people?
Because it was very serious. And and it was also his reaction to that fetish.
That's what I'm saying.
It's his
like
personal
his
reaction to
it
having that
was
fetish
fucked up.
involves killing people.
Yeah.
So it's not right.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
Obviously.
But see, there's a lot of shit. You know, people go on and on about gender and sexual orientation. In a weird way, a serial killer is a sexual orientation. But it's a bunch of stuff happening at once. And it kind of ends up being that's their sexual orientation. Death is a part of their sexuality. Murder is.
Yeah.
You know,
it
that's the way
may
I'm
very
looking
well
at it.
be, like I said.
Yeah.
And like I said, and I've said this before, I think I said this on the
It's
Ted
part
Bundy
of that
show
spectrum
too.
somehow.
You know, that I think that people that ultimately become serial killers, I do think that they are born with that propensity. I don't think that it will necessarily turn into that unless they have a particular upbringing. In very rare cases, I think they would just be a serial killer no matter what, just because they're so messed up.
I think it's a developmental
But
problem.
most of the time, I think that there has to be both of those factors. I think there has to be nature and nurture factors in most cases.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's a developmental problem.
Yeah.
That what's happening is very primitive. It's very infantile. It's
Yeah.
a mixture of advanced and primitive all happening in the same person.
Yeah.
And a bunch of conflicts.
Yeah, that definitely
Yeah.
seems to be the case here.
Yeah.
Like I said, and he seemed very matter of fact about having these fantasies, but he didn't really have any insight
Some
as to
kind
like why
of
he had them.
unresolved, some kind of unresolved early childhood fixation.
Yeah.
I think is really one of the key things you have to have.
It must have been.
Yeah.
Although, like I said, they don't know a lot about his
Because
childhood,
they start exhibiting weird behavior
yeah.
before puberty.
Yeah.
You know, or around, you know, they start killing animals around 12, 13. You know, it's during puberty times, a lot of times. It's something developmental, unresolved childhood issues.
Yeah. So
Freud would go off on it somehow. I don't think Freud ever discussed it. I don't think he knew about the phenomenon. And,
Yeah.
you know, Freudian psychology is very outdated, but he would have come up with an explanation for it somehow.
Probably. But, yeah, so 1974, Dennis is unemployed, like I said. And he started getting into the habit of, like I said, his wife Paula, she worked at a VA hospital, and she worked kind of far away. And in the wintertime, she didn't like driving back and forth, like in the ice or whatever. So he would drive her to and from work. Now, after he dropped her off at work and then he was driving back home, he started driving around in what he called trolling. So what he would do, and this was kind of like his standard MO, he would spend, and like I said, every time he was going to kill somebody, he called it a project. That's what he called it. So, or a PJ.
Yeah.
So he would start stalking people. Generally, he would have more than one going at once in case, you know, he decided to go with this one or this one got messed up or whatever reason. He would generally, like, target just people that he saw. Like, if he'd just be driving around and he would see a woman walking down the street and go, oh, that could be a victim right there. And then he would start kind of, like, driving past there, like, seeing when she was home, when she was out, if someone else lived there, where she worked. Like, he would go in, when she wasn't home, he would go in her mailbox and see, like, what her name was. You know, that kind of shit. And like I said, he said that he always had a bunch going at once. So then he could decide, like, on the day, like, which one he was going to go after. You know what I mean? So he's been doing this trolling thing. And his first set of victims, there's a family called the Otero family. And they had moved into this house, and Dennis had seen the mom and the daughter. Now, the mom was named Julie, and she was 34. The daughter, Josephine, was 11. Now, they were a Hispanic family, and Dennis apparently had some kind of thing for Hispanic women. Like, he liked their hair color, and, like, he thought they were exotic or some shit. I don't know. So he was, like, entranced with these two. So he starts, like, stalking. Now, he gets together his little kit, which he called his hit kit. And that was, like, all his shit in there, his guns. He had a couple of them. knives, tape, all the normal shit that you would expect if you were going to serial kill or somebody. And so then he starts watching the house. Now he knows that the Oteros, he knows it's a couple. He knows that they have a bunch of kids. But he thinks when he goes to the house to actually do the killing, he thinks that only the mom and the daughter and maybe one of the sons is going to be home. However, when he decides to break in one day, this is January 15th, so he drops his wife off at work. He goes back to the Otero house. He cut the phone line, which is something that he always did. He cut the phone line, and then he breaks into the house. And then, usually he hides in a closet or something like that. But this was his first one. So he just busted in. Now, the husband, Joe, was there. Now, he was not expecting Joe to be there. So he was already kind of off his game because this is his first time. It's it's already not going the way he expected. Also home was their 9-year-old son, Joey. They had 3 other kids, but the 3 other kids had already gone off to school. They also had a dog, a really mean dog, and that was also in the house. So immediately, he busts in the house and he's fearing that he's lost control already. But so he is armed. He comes in. He says, "Look, I'm a fugitive from the law. I need food and, a car, blah, blah, blah." That's what he told them. So he tells the kid, Joey, he says, "Go put the dog, in the backyard." And then he says, all I need's money and I'll just take it and then I'll be out of your hair. Now, the funny thing, well, it's not funny, but the husband at first thought it was a joke. He's
he didn't take it seriously.
Yeah, he's did somebody push you
I would
up
probably
to
do the
this?
same thing.
Well,
I said,
yeah,
this
that's
can't be right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's immediately what you think.
Because it sounds far-fetched.
Yeah.
Come on.
So he just thought it was a joke, but he was just "What, man? Are you serious?"
Yeah.
But no, he's got a gun on him. He tells me I'll lay down in the living room. Then he says, "No, never mind. Go in the bedroom instead." So he ties them all up. He puts a plastic bag over Joe's head. This is a 38-year-old guy. Joe starts fighting, obviously, as a normal man would. He tears the bag open and starts breathing through it and shit like that. But then, Dennis had to find some other cord and something like that and then start pull it around his neck. And he actually strangled him and thought he was dead. Then he tries to strangle the wife, Julie, with his bare hands, but he had never done it before. And I guess he had just seen in the movies, it's super easy to strangle somebody. It's really not easy.
It takes a long time
to strangle somebody. So he thought that she was dead. And then he took his hands away, but she was just passed out. So she woke back up, and then he had to go back over there, and he either strangled her with his hands or with a rope the second time. Then he takes the 9-year-old kid, Joey, takes him into his bedroom, does the whole strangulation, suffocation thing. Now, he said later in his confession, and this is fucking horrible, he said while the kid was dying, he, dragged a chair in from the kitchen so he could, watch it.
Yeah.
Isn't that fucked up? That's fucked up.
He's a dirty bastard,
Yeah. So then Josephine, this little 11-year-old girl, he tried to strangle her as well, but again,
now, where was she?
failed.
She was tied up in another room?
Yeah, everybody was just kind of,
Did she
tied
know
up
what happened to everybody else?
I don't know.
Damn.
I know. That's, the most horrible, if you're the last one. And you have to hear everything.
That's how I was. I'm trying to.
God, I can't imagine.
Man.
But yeah, so Josephine, he tries to strangle her. Again, it didn't work. She passed out. She just woke back up. So he actually took the gun, forced her to walk down to the basement. He takes a rope, ties it in a noose, and puts it around her neck and puts the noose over a big pipe that was in the basement. And there's a documentary on, because the house is still there evidently, or it was when this documentary was shot. And the cop that was the first on the scene, he went down there in the basement and it looks exactly the same. So he showed he's yeah, this is where it was.
Damn.
And then he's kind of started crying. Yeah.
Hunger
And
was jerking off. Watch it.
Yeah, and he says to the little girl, he says, "You're gonna be in heaven with all the rest of them in a minute."
Yeah.
He said some shit like that.
Yeah.
Then he asks her if they have a camera, and she's like, "No, we don't have one." So he half undressed her and then just left her hanging
Damn.
on this fucking pipe and then jerked off on her legs and then kind of went and he cleaned up the place. Then he took some shit from the house. Like, he took, like, a radio. He took, like, the dad's watch. Just, like, shit. It wasn't valuable stuff. It's just, like, he liked having souvenirs, I guess, so he could, like, think about it later. So he gets in their car and backs out the fucking driveway. Almost hits another car, but doesn't. Then he drives to a grocery store, like, near there, which is called Dillon's. He takes the car keys and throws them up on the roof of the grocery store. And then he walks to his own car. And then he realizes that he's forgotten one of his knives at the crime scene. So he gets in his car. He goes all the way back to the Otero house, parks his car in their garage. They're all fucking dead inside the house. Goes back in there. Well, actually, I think the knife was outside, like it was in the yard. So he gets the knife from the yard and then leaves again. Right? Holy shit. So, like I said, now the Oteros actually had 3 other children.
Why did he throw the keys on the roof? That
I don't know. He did that more than once, I think.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird too. I was like, what a weird detail.
Why did he care if the keys were in the car?
But he just he just like parked the car. Maybe fingerprints? I don't know. But he was wearing gloves though, I
think
thought.
he's tripping.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just,
I know priorities were all fucked up.
That struck me as a very strange detail.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
That he had like thrown the keys.
That would put yourself in more danger, calling attention to yourself.
Yeah.
Throwing keys up there and they go, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, like what?
I'm just,
I'm just throwing keys onto the roof of the grocery
store.
Like you do.
He's trying to be smarter than he is.
That's what I mean. It's like, what the fuck? And like you said, that would, if somebody saw you doing that, they'd be like, okay, that's super weird. I'm calling.
Trying to be smarter than he is.
Yeah.
They'll never get these keys. Fucking Dennis Rader.
I know. That's what I thought. I was like, that's super. I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, it kind of, like, if you don't think about it, you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds like, oh, wait a second. That's not a good idea. That doesn't make any sense at all.
It makes more sense to just leave the keys in the ignition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because somebody might steal the car and then they take the car to another fucking location. They get busted with the stolen car and then they're a suspect in the murder.
Yeah, and then they get
what were you fucking thinking, Dennis? Stupid bitch.
He is stupid, yeah.
Stupid bitch, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the shitty thing, too, is that the Oteros had 3 more kids, and when they came home from school, they found all the bodies.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
Damn.
Little teenage kids, 15, 14, and 13. Damn. That's special. Yeah, great.
Found the daughter hanging and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry,
I know.
sucker.
God, that's so fucked up.
Fucker, sorry, bro.
Yeah. So, this was in, as I said, January of 1974. Now, his next project, as he termed it, that pisses me off.
Yeah,
like I said,
trying to make it
they
something
piss
it's
me
not.
off. So, like, serial killers piss me off a lot.
Trying to make it something it's not.
He just pisses me off.
It was just a project.
Every time I see him, I just want to punch him right in his stupid fucking
Mission
face
number 2. Yeah.
God.
Fuck out of here, bro.
Yeah. So, yeah, his second project was Catherine Bright. She was 21 years old. Now, this actually was only a few months later. This happened in April of 1974. Now, again, she was just somebody that he'd been driving around trolling, as he termed it, and he just saw her going into her house and was like, oh, she looks like someone I could kill, I guess.
She's a hottie. I'm going to kill that.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. So, April 4th, he waits until she's gone. He breaks into her house through the back door, and then he hides in her bedroom. Now, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Catherine comes home. Now, she lived alone. He knew that. However, on this particular day, she was with her brother, Kevin, her younger brother. I think he was 19. So they had been out doing something like running errands that day. So he came back to the house too. So again, Dennis is like, well, shit, now here's another dude in the house that he wasn't expecting to be there. So he comes out of the bedroom and he's pointing a gun at them. He tells them the same thing that he told the Otero family. Look, I'm a wanted fugitive. I just need money and a car, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to tie you up and take your shit or whatever.
Now, he didn't wear a mask or any kind of disguise, did he?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because it's weird because he killed later on, he killed a neighbor of his.
Yeah.
Who knew who he was vaguely. So I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like he didn't. I don't think he wore a mask. It wasn't like a Golden State Killer type situation where he just had a ski mask on. I think he was just, hey, here's my face.
Right.
I don't know.
He was confident that he was going to kill you anyway, so it didn't matter.
That's what I'm thinking. He just thought no one was going to escape. However, in this situation, things went awry for him. So what he did was he tells Kevin and Catherine to go into the bedroom and then forces Kevin to tie up his sister. And then he takes Kevin to another room and tries to tie him up, but he hadn't brought his best hit kit that day, I guess. And he even said that, like, in his confession thing. It's like, oh, I didn't bring my stuff, my good stuff, so I had to, like, use some shit that they had around the house, so it didn't work out as good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, whatever. so he had to, like, improvise, he says. So
Baby Cookie's turning the camera.
Oh no.
Baby Cookie, stop turning the camera.
She's eating.
She's trying to bite.
She like puts her mouth on the little handle thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, aha.
Yeah.
You're so weird, Cookie.
Okay, so what happened?
So he, since he doesn't have the good shit and he had to improvise, he ties Kevin up.
Stop it. No.
Stop it, kitty.
Okay.
He ties Kevin up, but he doesn't do that good a job. So Kevin escapes. So then he starts fighting with Dennis. And almost got the gun away from him. So knock it off, kitty.
She's biting the camera. Okay, we're gonna have to do a kitty transplant.
Kitty transplant.
Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here.
Go on, Pokey. All right. So they get in a fight. Kevin almost gets the gun, but then Rader gets it back and shoots Kevin in the face. Kevin is shot in the face, and yet he is still fighting with this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Fighting with this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And tries to, like, overpower him again.
Yeah, a lot of people think that when they shoot at somebody in the head, they shoot towards the eyes. Okay, because that's what they're looking at. But the thing is that the brain is above the eyes.
Yeah.
A lot of times the fucking round goes in the face region. And believe it or not, face is not a vital area.
Yeah.
It'll go right out underneath the brain case, come out the back sometimes if it doesn't hit the spine.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people getting shot
blow
in
a
the face.
piece of your face
survived.
off, and you'll just be without a face, but a fully intact brain.
Yeah. I mean, it's not fun because you won't
Not
have
fun,
a face and
not
everybody
good.
will look at you weird.
Face is not really a vital organ, if you want to call it an organ. It's not a vital area.
Your face organ.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin's fighting with Dennis. He's already been shot in the face once, and then Dennis shoots him in the head. Now, at this stage, Kevin falls down, and he's bleeding from the head wound, obviously. So Dennis thinks he's dead, so he just goes back and starts to try to strangle Catherine. Now, Catherine also fought the shit, was, like, fighting him, like, really, really, really hard. And he was, like, couldn't do it. Like, he couldn't strangle her. And so he eventually ended up just stabbing her because he couldn't get the strength because she was just fighting him so hard.
Yeah.
So he stabbed her.
So that's a lesson to you girls. You can fight. It's better to fight than to be abducted.
She did die, though.
Never let anybody take you anywhere. Never let anybody tie you up. Ever.
That's what I mean. I would just...
Better to fight to the death.
Because
right
I figure they're going to kill me anyway.
If they take you somewhere, they're going to kill you. If they're tying you up, they're going to kill you. All right? And probably slowly. It's better to go down fighting early on.
I would rather.
Yeah. But make them kill you.
Yeah.
If it comes to that.
And maybe you'll fucking hurt them. Poke their eyes out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so she fought the shit out of it, but, you know, he still ended up, he couldn't strangle her, but he ended up stabbing her like 3 times in the abdomen. And she actually ended up dying later because what happened was he stabbed Catherine, and then he noticed that Kevin had gotten up and had run out the house and was screaming for help. Shot in the face, shot in the head. And he's running down the street screaming.
Yeah, he wasn't a big dude. He was a skinny guy.
So
I saw interviews with him.
Yeah, there's an interview with him on some of the documentaries.
And one of the interviews I saw said that he was of slight build back in those days. He might be a little bit bigger, but he was, a skinny kid.
Yeah. But yeah, so he actually took it. And so Dennis was like, okay, well, this has all gone sideways. So he basically just ran out the house. He kind of cleaned up around the house really quickly. Like he had hit clothes, that's what he called them. He had like an outfit that he was gonna throw away later, so he didn't like leave clothes anywhere. He always like destroyed them.
I heard that some people attacked the brother. How could you leave your sister? In a situation like that, he did the right thing.
He did, yeah.
You get the fuck out of there. I mean, minimize the death toll and try to find help because he couldn't handle the guy.
Yeah, and the thing
her
is,
only chance was for him to go get help.
And she didn't die right away.
Right.
The police came. They took her to a hospital. She got surgery. She got blood transfusion stuff. But unfortunately, she died anyway. After a few hours. Now Kevin survived. So the interesting thing is that when Dennis started taunting the police with and keep in mind when I say Dennis, they didn't know it was Dennis Rader until 2004. This is 1974. They didn't know who this guy was for a really, really long time. So he just like sent these messages to police like in these weird like circuitous kind of ways, and they had no idea who it was. Now the Catherine Bright murder, he confessed. You know, when he would say how many murders he had done, he usually said like the names. He would say the Oteros or whatever. He never really confessed to that one, even though he said, "Oh, I did another one," but he wouldn't say that one. And I don't know if it's because he messed it up, or if because he knew that Kevin could identify him. That's what I was wondering about. That's why I was wondering when you said about wearing a mask, because I'm like, if Kevin lived, he saw what that motherfucker looked like.
Yeah, he didn't want his description out.
And didn't want... So he never really took credit for that one.
Yeah.
He would say, like...
He had too many fingerprints on it.
Yeah. And like I said,
they
because
they would have gone to the witness and said, what exactly did he look like? And they would have passed around, this guy's a serial killer, this is what we think he looks like.
Yeah. Because I guess because it went so drastically out of his control that he didn't want to... Maybe it embarrassed him, too, and he didn't really want to say. Like, he would take credit for a murder that it's like, oh, I did another one, but he wouldn't say, like, what the victim's name was like he did with the other ones. So, I kind of wondered about that. Like I said, we know about the mask and everything. All right, so we're getting about to the halfway point, so let's take a break right now, and then when we come back, we will talk even more about Dennis Rader, a.k.a. the BTK Killer. So cute.
That's it. That's it.
Oh.
No more.
She's like, come on. I'm going to go get Mama's foot then. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no. The Faceless Villain, a collection of the eeriest unsolved murders of the 20th century, Volume 2, includes cases spanning the years from 1960 through 1979, featuring such infamous crimes as the triple homicide at Lake Bodom, the family massacre known as the Good Heart Murders, the serial killings of the Zodiac, Bible John, Jack the Stripper, and the Freeway Phantom, the slaughter of dozens of women and girls along the Highway of Tears and the Texas Killing Fields, and the mysterious death of suspected spy, the Isdal woman, along with dozens of other fascinating and horrifying accounts. Buy it now from Amazon in print, Kindle, or audiobook format. Okay, we're back talking about BTK.
Bind, torture, and kill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I said, he gave himself that name.
He's a douche.
How fucking lame is that?
Yeah.
That's lame. But yeah, so October 1974. Now, police had recently arrested either a guy or a couple of guys for the Otero murders, none of whom were Dennis Rader. Now, apparently Dennis Rader was mad that somebody else was getting credit for shit that he did. So what he did was he wrote a letter and he hid it in an engineering book in the Wichita Public Library. Then he calls the editor of the Wichita Eagle newspaper and tells them where the letter is. The editor calls the cops go to the library, and they find the letter. Now, the letter is a very, very graphic depiction of what happened to the Otero family. It had details only the killer would have known. So obviously they knew that this was the actual killer that had sent this. And he said, I did it myself with no one's help. Because like I said, he was afraid someone else was getting credit for the shit. Right. And he was annoyed about it. Now, like I said, if you read this whole letter, it is horribly written. It is just like, it's just the spelling and the grammar is just atrocious. I've never seen anything like it.
Was it consistent though?
Consistent in
like, did he always spell that way, or did he dumb his writing down to evade detection.
Do you know, I have heard people say that that maybe he was trying to make it seem like that, but from everything else that I've read about him, they're like, no, he really was that stupid.
All right.
Because some people did like float that idea that maybe he was just like, oh, he's some big super genius and he was trying to come across as a dummy. But I feel like,
trying to come across as somebody else. You know?
Yeah, but see, I feel like he was one of those ones that wanted the fame. So if he was really a super genius,
yeah, he wouldn't want to make himself look bad.
He wouldn't want to make himself look like a dumbass.
Right.
So he obviously didn't know any better.
Right,
Like he didn't know how to spell or anything like that.
Okay.
So in this letter, he actually comes up with the name for himself. Code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them, BTK. Might have been this letter or another one where he came up, like I said, he came up with some other names for himself. There was like
cheesy fucking names.
One of them was like the Poetic Strangler.
What kind of shit is it? Like, Dennis, man, what the fuck, dude?
I don't know what his problem is.
Yeah,
so now at this...
Poetic killer. Okay, Lord Byron.
Right.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's like, well, and that might have been later because he did actually like write some poems. Obviously, they weren't very good, but he wrote poems about some of the victims and some of the ones that had gotten away. You know what I mean? So now, even though he's done, he killed a family of 4. He killed one woman and almost killed her brother. So, but then there was a gap. Now, in November of 1974, Dennis starts working for ADT Security. And he got up to, I mean, he worked there for like 14 years, I think.
Famous company, yeah.
Yeah, and they're still around.
Right.
And so essentially, he was going around, he was an installation supervisor. So he could go around and
case joints.
Yeah, and he could case joints and advise people on alarm, and he knew how to get around alarm systems because he installed them for a living.
Yeah.
So there was that whole thing going on. And since he was an installation supervisor, he could go around in the company van like all day long and say he was working, but he could really be trolling. So, you know what I mean? So it was like win-win from his point of view. So, yeah. Now, in 1975, him and his wife Paula had a son named Brian. So they think that because he had got another job, because he had a new baby, this is probably why there was this big gap in the killings. They don't think he committed any crimes between 1974 and 1977. Although he did say later on when he was caught that he was always trolling, like he was always fantasizing about the next kill and like planning it and like checking out victims and all that kind of shit. Now, there wasn't another one until March of 1977, so this is like 3 years. So he's been kind of driving around this one neighborhood. Now, he had met this one girl named Cheryl in a bar, and he knew that she lived with another female roommate nearby, and that they had parties and stuff like that. So he was kind of like considering that this was going to be his next victim, either just her or her and her roommate. So he had planned this. So when he went to the house on the day that he was going to do the killing, no one was home. So, and they interviewed this woman on one of the documentaries because they're like, had you been home that day, you probably would have got murdered. But luckily she was not home that day. So he's frustrated and he's all, in his words, he said he was keyed up. So since his intended target was not home, he was going to go try and find another one. So he goes and starts casing this other house in the neighborhood and looks around, but there's nobody home there either. Then he's walking down this street called Hydraulic Street, which I thought was like a really weird name for a street. You know, what the hell, Wichita? Yeah. And he sees this little 5-year-old.
Might have been some hydraulic plant there.
I'm assuming that's what it was. So he sees this little 5-year-old boy named Steve Relford. Now, he says to the boy that he's a private detective. He takes out a photograph of his own wife and kid and says, "Do you know who these people are?" And the kid obviously was like, "No, I don't know who that is." So then he watches the kid to see what house the kid goes into. Now, in the meantime, he goes to like another house and like trolls in there, but there's no one there either. So then he goes back to the house where the kid went into. So he comes to the door, says again that he's a private detective, and then he gets into the house. So There's Steve is in the house. He's 5. There was another kid in the house, a little boy who was 8, and a little girl who was 4. Dennis comes in the house. He turns off the TV. He closes the blinds, and then he pulls a gun out. Now, the mom comes out. Her name was Shirley Vian. She was 24. She comes out of the bedroom and is like, what the hell is going on out here? Now, she had stayed home from work that day because she was sick. She had the flu. So she comes out and she has a bathrobe on. He says, okay, well, I have a weird sexual thing. I have to tie you up and rape you. He says I have a sexual problem or something like that.
I remember him telling
I have to tie you up and rape you. And then it'll all be over and it'll be fine.
Hold on one second.
What's that?
I've seen interviews where Rader is talking about his sexual problem. All right. He's explaining to investigators what I told her, And how he says sexual problem is fucking hilarious.
It is, yeah. I was just listening
I
to
told her I had a sexual problem.
Yeah.
Sexual problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fucking, this motherfucker was something else, man. I have sexual problems.
Yeah. I have to tie you up and rape you.
Oh,
I'd be like,
man.
that sounds like your problem,
Well,
not mine.
It's a sexual problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fucking problem, all right.
Come on, man.
So he says, I'm just going to rape you and then I'll leave.
It's a sexual problem.
And I mean, he had a gun, so she was like, okay, fine. So he's like, okay, well, we're going to like barricade the kids in the bathroom. So he puts like blankets and toys and shit like that, like in the bathroom. And then he locks all the kids up in there, like barricades them in there, like with a piece of furniture or some shit like that. So then he says to Shirley, like I said, she had the flu. So while he was talking to her, she barfed. She had to go, he let her go get a drink of water. He let her have a smoke because she was like freaking out. This is another thing. Like when he was doing the confession thing, he kept saying like every time like his victims, it's like, well, at this point she was pretty upset.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
like,
pretty upset.
You think? Do you think that she was probably pretty upset? Yeah, she was probably pretty fucking upset.
Yeah.
Pretty upset.
Well, of course she was upset.
She was pretty upset.
She was upset.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He just makes me so mad. I mean, they all make me mad, but that just, for some reason, that just...
Well,
God,
she was upset.
I was watching it. I had to keep turning it off because I'm like, I'm going to have a rage stroke if I keep watching this shit.
I don't understand it. I'm trying to rape and kill a bitch and, they get upset.
They get upset.
They
Right.
get upset.
That's exactly how it came across. That's exactly how it came.
I understand, but, they get upset.
They get upset. Like that's their problem. I don't know why. I have no idea why they'd be getting upset.
I'm laughing because I'm fucking pissed at these dudes. So don't make I'm not laughing at people dying. I think
that's what I mean. You have to laugh.
You
it's
gotta
like
laugh
it's
at
so
these fucking
horrifying.
losers, man.
It's so
I
horrifying.
would fucking kick this dude's ass.
And like I said, it's just that just made me so angry. Like when he said that, just made me so
I'd be
angry.
kicking Dennis's ass, going, "You're getting a little upset, aren't you, Dennis?"
Yeah, are you getting upset? Are you pretty upset right
aren't you,
now?
Dennis? Yeah.
I don't even think it would fucking work. I don't know. But yeah,
I cut enough flesh off that man. He'd be very upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope. Let's make him very upset. So
give me a blowtorch in about 4 hours. He'd be real
Right.
upset. Yeah.
Yeah. So this poor girl. So he says he's just gonna rape her, but of course that was a lie. He tied her up and then strangled her. And she had told him that her husband was coming home, but he already knew that because he'd kind of, actually he didn't know that because she was just random. He was targeting somebody else, and she just happened to be, her kid happened to be walking down the street running an errand, and he was like, hey, I'm gonna go to that house. So yeah, so her husband did actually come home like later on, and he found her. The kids, what ended up happening? He strangled her. Then he jerked off into her underwear.
Yeah.
And then...
like a man does.
Right. And then the kids... He said the kids kept, like, banging on the door.
Yeah,
like,
those damn kids. I'm trying to rape and kill
get
this
out. Right. Like, they kept banging to get out. And then the phone started ringing.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, well, I have to get the hell out of here. So he was going to kill the kids as well.
Right.
But since the phone rang and they were making so much noise, he's like, and the windows were open.
Yeah, he
like,
didn't
one of the
have
windows
time
were
to
open.
kill these,
Right. So he was like, well, I thought that I better
making
get
so
the
much
hell out
noise,
of
I
here.
can't kill these kids.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what pissed me off so much. Like everything
phone
came
was
across
ringing,
as
that
like
phone might stop me from doing this.
right. Like everything was just like such an inconvenience
Yeah,
for him.
goddamn.
It just came across like that.
The
I think
phone stopped ringing.
I think that's what
my
made me the
sexual
maddest.
problems. My
Yeah.
sexual problems. Yeah.
and it's just
Fuck
like
Rader, man. Rader's a fucking pussy.
he has a sexual problem, and I'm like, and I have to deal with that. Why? Who the fuck are you? I don't know. Yeah. So As I said, this was March of 1977. Now, a few months later, December 1977, he has been stalking this other woman named Nancy Fox, and she's 25. He's been trolling and he's been stalking her for quite a while. He found out her name, he found out where she worked, like what her schedule was and everything like that. So December 8th, she lived in a duplex and she lived by herself, and I don't think anybody lived in the other half of the duplex either. So she was kind of in this big house like all by herself. He cut the phone line and then broke in. And he hid in her house. Now, she worked at a jewelry store at night. I think she had a couple of jobs. So she comes home, and she's in the kitchen. He pops out with the gun, and he tells her the same thing. It's like, I have a sexual problem.
I got a sexual problem.
I need to, rape you. So that's how that's going to go.
Man, this is 1977. There's a shit ton of serial killers running around at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, you even got, you got Bundy running around in 77, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the fuck.
Weird, man. Some weird
70s.
shit was going on.
We've talked about that before. I don't know what the fuck you were. I think it was maybe lead in the fucking water.
I think it was a combination of lead poisoning
in the
from the fucking leaded gasoline. No, their mothers, right, didn't have access to abortion. I think.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of unwanted.
Like I said, kids. I've heard that said because
these bitches should have been aborted.
The crime rate dropped like 18 to 20 years after Roe versus Wade.
Right.
So
getting rid of all those fucking.
Well, yeah. If you
don't want to sound inhumane, but getting rid of the excess unwanted population has certain benefits.
Well, it's just that if a woman is poor and she knows, like, look, I'm a drug addict, or I'm poor, I can't afford this, or I'm not ready. Yeah. It's better for her not to have it. It's just like, you know what I mean? Because if you do, and she can't provide for it, or what if she's addicted to drugs? What if she's in an abusive relationship? What if, you know what I mean? There's all these things, and it's like you bring a kid into it, and that kid's gonna be messed up. Yeah. It's like it's not the kid's fault.
And these serial killers tend to come from basically working class or low income white families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I do think that was a factor.
The kind that would be aborting children nowadays.
Yeah, I do think that's definitely a factor. And like I said, I think the lead thing might be a factor too. I've only seen that mentioned like one other place.
Well, hey man, they'll talk about ancient Rome having all kinds of problems with drinking water that came out of lead pipes and eating off of lead plates.
Yeah.
All right, but they don't want to mention that leaded gasoline.
Yeah.
Those cars back in I was there during that time.
That was putting some fucking particles in
buying leaded gasoline. Yeah, that was blowing particles out the back of the exhaust pipes. And that shit wouldn't go anywhere. It would just kind of blow around inside cities.
Yeah.
Well, where's all this happening? In cities, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Suburban areas. Because there was a high population density.
Yeah.
You don't really hear about it happening too much out in the country.
No.
I bet you that lead was a factor. Those little lead particles, they were...
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm sure it's not the only one. I'm sure it was like a confluence of factors, but I think that was probably one.
Lead evidently kind of lowers inhibitions.
Yeah.
And look, you had all this weird sexual shit that was going on, sexual revolutions and there was weird shit going on back then, and it was violent.
Yeah.
It was a violent time. When it really, I don't think it should have been a violent time. I bet you it was that lead. I'm just saying, people.
Yeah, it might have been. So pretty much this thing with Nancy Fox went almost the same way as the Shirley Vian thing. Now he did, he tied her to the bed, and undressed her and undressed himself. And he straight up told her, "I'm the person that killed the Oteros." Like after she was tied up. Yeah. What the fuck? So at this point, even though he said,
of course, she was upset. She was upset.
Yeah, and I think he said that too. Like he just kept saying that like every time. He was just like, yeah, they were pretty upset.
They were pretty upset.
Oh my god, that made me so angry. But yeah, so now that she's tied up, even though he said before, "Oh, I'm just gonna rape you and then I'll leave."
Yeah, I'll be okay.
But now that he said, "Oh, I killed a whole fucking family, including little kids," it's like she's probably like, "Well, fuck."
For some reason, she was a little bit upset
about that. Yeah.
She's upset about that.
So same kind of thing. He strangles her to death and then jerks off into her nightgown. Now the next morning, he goes to work, and then he goes out in his little company car or his van or whatever. He stops at a phone booth, and then he calls the police and says, you'll find a homicide. He said homicide.
Yeah, I remember Nancy Fox.
Yeah, and then he told them the address.
Nancy Fox.
And then he leaves the phone receiver like hanging from the phone booth. So the cops go there and stuff like that. Now the interesting thing is they play the tape, obviously, as they would. They play the tape on the news and everything like that, and nobody recognized his voice. Nobody.
Nancy Fox.
Yeah.
A homicide.
Yeah, homicide. That's what he said. Like I said, it's like, what the fuck is the matter with him? I don't know. But yeah. So then he starts his little, quasi Zodiac shit again. He sends a postcard to the Wichita Eagle newspaper in the first couple months of 1978, and he had written a poem on it called Shirley Locks. Like Shirley Villian was one of his victims, but the problem is it got sent to the mailroom, and I guess nobody knew that it was from him, or nobody knew what it had, what it was pertaining to, so it just kind of got left on a desk somewhere. So I don't think they even found it until later on. And then a couple days after that, they got another letter that they knew was from the killer. In that one, he said, I killed the Oteros, I killed Shirley Villian, I killed Nancy Fox, and I also killed an unnamed seventh victim, who was obviously Catherine Bright. And like I said, he never directly took credit for that one, either because the brother lived or because he was embarrassed about how it had all gone.
He didn't want to be ID'd.
Yeah. He also was trying to justify what it was that was making him kill people. Oh my goodness.
What?
That's Beijing.
It's Beijing. She want to go outside.
What's the matter?
You want to go outside. She wants
Okay.
to go ahead. Had to let Beijing out.
Yeah, she came in here yelling. She's very demanding, Beijing.
Our cats speak and we know exactly what they're talking about. They know how to communicate.
It is like, rah!
Oh, you want out? Okay.
Okay, you go outside and play.
All right, back to BTK and his sexual problems.
Yeah, and his sexual problems.
So, well, sexual problems,
Yeah, like I said.
I get very upset.
Understatement of the century.
I get upset,
Why are you getting so upset? Why are you upset? I'm just killing you.
Of course,
Why upset?
She was upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. I'm telling you.
In a way, it was like humble bragging. He was trying to say they were terrified of me.
Yeah.
I see through that shit.
Yeah.
Dennis, I would fuck you up, man. I would fuck you up. You're lucky you're behind bars.
Yeah.
I would fuck you up, dude.
Yeah, I think a lot of
I wouldn't even need any of my guns. I wouldn't even need a knife. Just
what fun
fucking
would that
hand to
be?
hand, I'd fuck you up, dude. What you did to those families. You're behind bars for your own protection.
Yeah.
So consider it a blessing. Okay, it's not just me. Other dudes would fuck you up too.
That's what I mean. I'm sure you'd have to wait.
Millions
very,
of people
very
would
long
fuck
line.
you up. All right, you're behind bars for your own protection, Dennis.
Yeah. So, in this latest letter that he sent to the Wichita Eagle, he was trying to explain what it was that made him want to kill people. He's called it various times. He called it Factor X.
Yeah, well, I'm very special,
He's special, all right. Sometimes he called it something like a demon. He even kind of drew a picture of it, and it was really weird because it was just this little. It almost looked like a cute cartoon bug.
Okay, yeah.
That's how he saw it. That
was
was
the whole thing. Maybe different.
What was making him kill people, and I'm just like, okay.
Made me want to rape a bitch and jerk off into her panties.
Yeah.
It was real honorable.
It's the fucking.
It had a higher purpose.
In a way, I'm just glad that it's weird to me because I'd be worried if that shit made sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
that's full of shit.
That's not good. Now, also in this letter, and again, this is another one of the poems. Quit moving around. You're this shit all. It's going out of focus.
I'm running with Kool pretty hard.
That's
right
what
now.
I mean because
he
keeps swaying around and it keeps
I'm
going.
thinking about
blurry.
making General Chicken. I got General Chicken in back in there that I'm gonna cook up. I'm gonna deep fry that shit up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Friday night when we're recording this.
It's Friday night. It's all good. Go ahead. Go back to
that. Well, thank you. May I?
Go ahead.
Okay. And also, he included a poem that was called "Oh Death to Nancy," that was based on. It was based on
Nancy Fox.
a folk song called "Oh Death," which was actually they speculate that he might have learned it in one of his classes, because they did teach it in like one of the literature classes, like at Wichita, at the university he was going to. So they think he might have got it from there, but he like changed it so it was specific to that fucking victim. Now, when they got this letter, the police were torn, because they're kind of like, okay, well, clearly this guy is a psycho and a serial killer, but just as clearly he wants attention and fame.
Yeah.
Do we want to give him that? But he's like, then on the other hand, you know, the public has a right to know that there's a serial killer running around, and they need to take some steps to like protect themselves, you know, to the extent that that's possible.
Yeah.
So they didn't really know what to do. They're like, we don't really want to like give this guy what he wants, but you know, on the other hand, we want to protect the public too. So you know, in the end, they decided to go ahead. Okay, we're just going to have to go ahead and like publish this douche's ravings.
Which I agree with that.
You'd have to, because if somebody got killed because you didn't pay enough attention, then that would be on you. And nobody wants that.
I believe that it was a better call to go ahead and fucking satisfy an attention-seeking fucking whore like this bitch right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that could have saved maybe one or two people.
Yeah.
It was worth that. He wasn't going to stop.
Yeah.
But that might slow it down.
Yeah.
And give them more time.
Yeah, it's like you never.
It's the right call.
Like I said, it's like I'm not really, in general, I'm not a big advocate of like giving attention to fuckers like this that want it. But
depends on the situation.
This situation, I think they did the right thing.
Yeah.
Because he seemed to be the type of dude that if he didn't get attention, like, because I think this second letter, he was like, hey, what the fuck? Like, I sent that postcard before and like nobody said anything about it. So he was getting angry. So that might have made him lash out.
I would think that in an offender like this, giving him some attention would slow down his cravings.
Yeah.
So he would have killed less people that year.
Yeah, it might have been.
So, yeah.
Like I said, it's a hard call to make, but I think they did make the right call in this situation of just like giving him the attention that he wanted.
You're right.
But the fucked up thing is that during this whole time that he was stalking Nancy Fox and like murdering her and stuff like that, his wife Paula was pregnant with their second child.
Well, you know, I had these sexual problems.
Yeah.
And my wife, you know what I mean, it wasn't working out. So I had to go outside the marriage, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now they were upset, you know.
You're nailing it. You're kind of like...
That's how these motherfuckers rationalize that shit.
Like scaring me.
They were a little upset, but it all worked out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm answering for it now.
Yeah.
Which that'll make it all better.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, he didn't say that, but that sounds
That's
like
exactly what
something
he's talking
he would
about.
say.
That's what he's talking about.
That sounds like something he would say.
That's the thinking.
So this kid was Carrie.
I can't bring him back.
Yeah.
But I can answer for it, and that's even better than bringing him back.
Yeah. These dudes, man. It's like, I find them fascinating, but like also I'm just like, what the fuck? What's the matter with you?
They're not thinking of others. They're really thinking of themselves, you know what I mean?
Well,
they're aggrandizing themselves, you know, hey, taking responsibility for my crimes. That's better than having those bitches back.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
It's almost kind of like
That's the way
those
they're
people
thinking.
that do really fucked up shit, and then they say they're sorry, and then everyone's just supposed to be like, pretend like nothing happened.
Yeah, yeah.
I said I was sorry. What the hell else I can do?
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all. I'm like, yeah, but the fucked
You
up
win,
shit that you did is still...
You win. You know, I said you win. So
that still happened,
yeah,
and it's like you can't fix it just by saying the magic word. So, I don't know. Yeah, so, like I said, so this kid was Carrie. Like I said, she's the one, she's grown now, and she recently, like, put out a book about what it was like growing up with him. Because the creepy thing, and I watched, like, a really long interview with her. This poor woman, she is like, she had no idea. She's like, he was just totally normal. Took them to Disneyland, took them camping. She's like, I loved my dad, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, hung out with my dad. It's like, you never, like, would have imagined that. Now, when she found out, she wrote him letters. I think she wrote him one letter, and she's basically like, you know, I still love you, but I don't understand this, and blah, blah, blah. But she has never been to visit him, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
So... it was just a really fucked up thing, and then just watching the interview with her like made me really sad. Like I'm sure she doesn't like want people to be sad about her and stuff.
Well,
it made me really sad.
He gave them a good childhood because that was his duty, and it reflected on him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but that's not, if you ask me, that's not who those guys are.
Yeah.
he put up a good illusion of being a good father. That's not who those dudes are, though.
Yeah. It's just weird to me how he could separate it out, because, I mean, he had a wife, he had 2 kids, he had a normal life, he had a normal job, and it's like, you know, every now and then he would go off and do his quote-unquote projects, and no one suspected anything, but it's like, and this, I think we talked about this on one of our other shows, too, so I'm like, did he actually really love his wife and kids, or care about them, or not? Is he capable of it?
I don't think they're really capable. I don't think they have the emotional range.
That's what I mean. I don't think they're capable of it. Maybe they can pretend real good.
I think everything is a reflection on what they do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
So maybe it was part of the whole package of...
I have a wife, I have kids, and I'm good to them because that reflects good on me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to do.
That's what you do. That's how
what
it's
you
done.
do, and
yeah,
you know,
I think that's probably what it is.
Right, yeah. Right.
It's all just like an extension.
It's more about them.
It's an extension of his self-image.
Right. I'm a good father because I'm good.
Yeah. Like,
you could take those kids and replace them with anything else, and he'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See, that's kind of what I suspect, too, because I'm like, look, if you're just going out killing random people, there's
I'm
no way...
doing what I'm supposed to do.
You can't care about
doing what I'm supposed to do. This is
you
what
can't.
you're supposed to do. This is what makes you, makes you a good person. Now, I have sexual problems. And I gotta go out. I gotta do. You know what I mean? I might have to strangle a bitch. I might have to. I might have to bind, torture, and kill. I might have to. Put on some women's underwear and take pictures of myself. And pretend like I'm one of the victims. And,
yeah, like sometimes you have to do those.
You just have to do it.
Evidently.
Yeah. You're right.
I've never felt the need to do any of those things, but whatever.
It's Factor X.
Yeah.
Factor X.
That's what he called it.
Yeah, Factor X. I know. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
All right, it's the whole family man persona doesn't have anything to do with the wife and the kids. It has to do with his own self-image.
Yeah.
That's how he fulfills his self-image. You know what I'm talking about? It's
Yeah.
serving him.
Yeah.
It's like a possession. It doesn't have anything to do with them.
It's just like an outfit.
Right. Well, it makes him feel like he's normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes him feel like he's high value and that he's prestigious.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a reflection on itself.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that.
I'm good to my kids because it's good for me.
Yeah.
Basically. That's what he's talking about. Everyone will know that I'm a good father.
Yeah. Because that's what you're supposed to do. Because that's what everybody does.
It holds society together.
Yeah,
and then,
he definitely seemed like that type of...
And you have to have a society for me to deal with my sexual problems. That's what he's talking about. You didn't have a society, you couldn't rape a bitch.
If we're not on the show and you say shit like that, like in that voice, like I'm just gonna go, ah!
Well, if you don't have a society, you can't break into people's houses and rape a bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And strangle them and bind them and torture them and kill them. You can't do that without a society. You have to look at it from that point of view. Well, it wouldn't be subversive if we didn't have a society. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be the same.
Like I said, I'm not sure he's like smart or insightful enough. To actually like consciously.
No, I don't think they reasoned it out that much.
But I think that
it's just
that
instinctual.
Is probably what is.
It was
going
just it was emotional and instinctual for them to do it that way.
So all right, so April 1979. Dennis has had another project. It's this woman named Anna Williams. Now, she's 63 years old. She's a widow. Her husband has just died, I think.
So what you call a cougar.
Well, what he said later on was that he was tired of... He's like, look, I knew that I was... that, whenever he had gone after younger women, they generally fought him.
Right.
A lot of times there were men there that would also fight him.
Okay.
So it seemed like he's like, well, I'm going to start going after older women because they're more vulnerable.
They're more vulnerable. Yeah. It was easier.
So that's kind of what his thinking was on that, and he did actually admit that. Yeah. So this was a 63...
And they might not get as upset.
Yeah, I suppose. So he breaks into her house... Like I said, he's been trolling and watching her and stuff, so he knows what her schedule is. He breaks into her house and waits in there.
Yeah.
But she doesn't come home that night. Or she came home like much later than she normally would.
Yeah.
He got bored and left. Like he took some shit from her house.
Right.
And then he was like pissed off and he was upset.
Right.
And he left.
How dare you not be here?
Yeah. So
You broke a date with me.
right. I think that's how he thought of it. Because a couple months later, he mailed her a package, like to her house. And in the package, there was a poem that was called, "Oh, Anna, Why Didn't You Appear?" He had drawn like what he would had been planning on doing to her and the shit that he had taken out of her house. He sent that to her house.
Yeah.
And he sent like copies of that shit to the KAKE TV station in Wichita. And this woman, Anna Williams, freaked the fuck out, as you would, and moved the fuck out of Wichita.
Right.
I was like, yeah, no shit. So would I. Now, at this stage, they don't think he killed anyone again for several years.
Now, is he still working for ADT at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he worked there for until 1988.
Okay.
I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during this time when he wasn't killing anybody, he was still doing the trolling thing. He said he never stopped doing that. He was always trolling, always looking, always fantasizing about, his next thing, but he just didn't do one for a long time. Now, his son Brian at one stage got old enough to be in the Cub Scouts, so Brian joined the Cub Scouts and he became like a Cub Scout leader. And also got very active in his, like, I think this is like a Lutheran. So he's like a Lutheran church. And he eventually got up, he was like president of the church council or some shit like that. So this is, from the outside, if you didn't know any better, he's a Cub Scout leader. He's like the leader of the church council. He has this job for 14 years. He's a totally respectable individual who just happens to fucking strangle people to
This
death.
is all things that serve him and his self-image.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right.
So
He's an approval-seeking motherfucker, really.
Yeah.
Is what he is.
now, then comes 1985. Now, this is April 27th, and Dennis is at like a Boy Scout camp out, like outside of the city. Now, he had been stalking their neighbor, Maureen Hedge. She was 53. She was also widowed. Now, she only lived like right down the street from them. And she knew him. Like, she knew the family because she's like, the family would walk by the house. He said we would walk by their house sometime, and she like worked out in her garden all the time. And so like they would wave to them.
I remember her. She was a pretty older woman. Right.
Yeah. So, So he knew her, and I guess he decided, which to me that seems like a stupid move, but so he decides that she's going to be his next quote unquote project.
Well, I guess he figured, well, they'll never suspect, just because I live in this area, I killed so many people in other areas, and why would they suspect that I had anything to do with this? That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't really go far afield. I mean, I think everyone he killed was in Wichita
Within
or
his
around
area,
Wichita.
right.
Yeah. He wasn't like Ted Bundy where he just like would go to one state.
But she wasn't the first victim. It's more likely that a guy's first victim is somebody who lives near him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he wasn't the first one, so he knows, well, this is going to be considered a BTK killing, and she wasn't the first one, so they wouldn't think.
And like I said, he had a degree in administration of justice. He
knew
all about serial killers.
And he knew about law enforcement techniques and the patterns.
So he knew all of that kind of crap. So April 27th, he's at the Boy Scout camp out, and he says, he tells them, he's like, oh, I have a headache, I have to go into town and get some aspirin or something like that. But really, he was going to go kill her. So he parks his car, like, by this bowling alley. He buys a beer, and then, like, he swishes it around his mouth and kind of pours it on himself, and then starts acting like a drunk. So he calls a cab, and he tells the driver, take me to this park that's over here. He's like, I gotta walk it off, I gotta go home, and I'm kind of messed up. So he's, like, acting all drunk and shit. So the cab drops him off in this park, which happened to be like right behind Maureen Hedges' property. It was like right behind her backyard. So he gets out the cab and he sees that Maureen's car is in the garage or in the driveway rather. So he's like, well, shit, she's home. Because he thought she wasn't going to be home and he was going to break in the house and wait for her like he usually did. But he's like, okay, well, maybe she's not. So he cuts the phone line. He sneaks in the door, like he pried the door open with a screwdriver, and actually no one was there. So she was out with someone else, but, you know, in their car. So he hides in the closet, like in her bedroom. So Maureen comes home, and she has like a man with her named Gerald Porter. So they had been out in his car. So they come there, like they hang out and talk until like 1 a.m. Gerald leaves, and Dennis is in the closet like this whole fucking time. So he waits until
grown man waiting in the closet.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then so he waits until Maureen like goes to bed and goes to sleep. He comes out of the closet, turns on the bathroom light, and then jumps on her. And then he actually strangled her with his bare hands. She was, you know, she was a little woman. She was only like 100 pounds or something like that. Now, this is a new wrinkle that he's added because it's been a few years since his last one. His last one was 1977. This is 1985. So he strangles her to death. He drags her out the house, puts her in the trunk of his car. He goes to the church that he's the council leader at.
Yeah. Takes pictures of her.
Yeah, and he takes her out in the woods behind he had keys to the church and everything, so he could get in and shit. So he takes her down to the basement. He puts like tape and shit like over the basement. He takes her down to the basement. He ties her up in various positions and like takes pictures of her. And then he takes her out and then like dumps her like on a dirt road or something like that, under some fucking shit.
He takes a bunch of pictures of her like all laid out. I think he even dressed her up, if I remember correctly.
He may have,
I think he dressed her up. This was a long time ago. She researched it recently, but I remember it from back in the day. That basically what he was doing is he was kind of trying to make like a layout portfolio of this woman. It's kind of like porn. He's making his own porn.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing.
Right, and in a way it might make sense from his point of view because it's more efficient. He could enjoy that for longer because he's going to beat off to that shit. Mm-hmm. Which has been a long time since he's killed someone. He's probably thinking, well, I'll kill this one and I won't do it for a long time. So I have to fucking, make this one last.
Yeah.
So the whole photographing of the body and all these kind of like seductive poses, or he thinks they're just seductive. I never saw the photos. I don't think they're available to the public.
I've seen the ones of him that he took of himself, but I mean, I'm sure the ones of the victims are probably out there somewhere, but I don't want to see that.
It was a shame. She's a woman in her 50s, and she was a good-looking woman in her 50s. And he just fucking killed her. And
then took pictures
for
of
that
her,
shit. You know what I mean? It's fucking
fucked up.
Okay,
and then he dumps her body, puts some fucking branches over or something like that.
Yeah.
Takes her car, parks it, wipes all the fingerprints off or whatever, and then he goes back to the Boy Scout camp where he had been. And so he just kept those photos, he still had them, when they arrested him many years later. So his next victim was Vicky Wegerle. She was 28 years old. She lived with her husband and 2 children. And Dennis had been stalking her for quite a while. He used to walk back and forth by her house, and he would hear her playing the piano in her house. He shows up on September 16th, and he's in a telephone repairman outfit, with a hard hat and all that kind of shit. And he says, I have to come in and check your phone lines and everything like that. So he comes inside the house. She was there, and I don't know if the 2 kids were there or not, but the husband wasn't there. So he comes in. He had a little gadget that looked like a phone testing thing. So he's over there fucking with the phone, look, I'm doing some official shit over here. Yeah. But then he pulls a gun out, forces her into the bedroom. He tries to tie her up, but again, she fought him. And this is why later on he started going after older women, because he was going after the younger ones, but they kept fighting him. You know what I mean? And he wanted somebody that wasn't as physically strong.
Lesson to you women out there, fight. Don't go along with it. Fight.
Yeah. Well,
make them kill you if you have to.
Yeah.
All right.
So he actually ended up getting the better of her. Then he strangled her using pantyhose. Right. Took a bunch of pictures of her. Right. She again had also said that her husband Bill would be home soon. Dennis actually stole her car, or stole the Wegerle's car, and was leaving. And Bill Wegerle was coming home and saw Vicky's car, like, passing him and was like, who the fuck is driving that? You know what I mean? So it's, like, freaked out. So he was the one that found her. Now, the fucked up thing, their 2-year-old son, Brandon, was still in the house. He was just, like, in the living room crying or whatever. So I don't know if Dennis didn't see him or he just left him there.
Probably left him there.
So BTK, they found Vicky. She was still alive, but they took her to the hospital and she died later on. BTK is driving around, getting rid of the evidence and, getting rid of the car and blah, blah, blah. The shitty thing about this one is that, so this happened in 1986. For a very long time, because they didn't know this was a BTK killing or, they didn't know who BTK was, they thought that the husband had done it. And his life was essentially ruined by them suspecting him. Like, I don't know if they ever, like, arrested him, but they kept, like, the police kept him on their radar.
Right.
And, like, you know what I mean? There was, like, all this shit in the media about, like, he was probably the one. Yeah. So it seemed like the suspicion that he had done it, like, hung over him until they actually, like, caught BTK. Okay. So in 1988, Dennis gets fired from ADT. They said it was because he wasn't getting his work quota completed.
He was fucking raping too many bitches, couldn't get his fucking work done.
I guess that's what it was. Yeah. So he's, like, out of a job at this point. He got a temporary job, like, working for the Census Bureau, like, going around doing the census or whatever. So at this stage, and like I said before, he's starting to go after older women because at this point he's 45 years old.
Yeah.
And he's like, younger women are too much trouble because they're fighting him, and, like, when the men are there, like, they're also fighting back against him. So he's trying to make his life easier, I guess, and, like, a horrible...
Going for women who are less desirable is less competition. Isn't it to fight younger men to get to these young women?
I guess so.
That's what he's talking about.
So his next quote-unquote project was a 62-year-old woman named Dolores Davis. Now, she
Considerably
lived...
older than him. That's unusual. Okay.
Yeah, she lived not that far away from him, although I don't think he knew her, but he had just, again, like most of his other victims, he had just happened to see her and say, hey, that looks like a victim, and then, like, started stalking her and following her around. And she also lived alone, which was, like, a big plus. Now, this is the same kind of thing he did with the other shit where he was going to be away for a weekend, like at a Boy Scout camp. And he did the same kind of thing. Like, he came up with some excuse, like, I have to go do whatever. And then, he, instead of doing what he said he was going to do, he goes and he changes out of his scout uniform and he changes into his quote-unquote hit clothes and goes to Dolores's house. Now, in this case, he hangs out outside. It's, like, freezing cold. Then he takes a cement block and, like, throws it and, like, busts open, like, the sliding glass door. Now, Dolores comes running out of the fucking shit because she thought a car had driven into her house because it was, like, really loud. And he tells her the same thing. It's like, I'm a criminal on the run from the law. It's like, I need to tell you about blah, blah, blah. And then that's the same kind of thing. Like, he strangled her with a ligature. Then he didn't take pictures of her, but he did do a sketch of her. I've seen the sketch. It's kind of fucked up looking. So, just like he did with the previous victim, he takes the victim, he drags her out of the house, puts her in the trunk of the car, and then, takes her somewhere and takes pictures. He also did the same thing. He did the thing again where he took the car and then tossed the keys onto the roof of her house.
Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why he does that.
Yeah.
That's really weird. But then, like, he walks back and, like, fucking whatever. So, yeah, so he's, like, taking pictures of this. Now, in this case, I think that he went back the next night and took pictures again, like, with the body where he had dumped it. Now, this was where the very famous photo of him in the grave, that has, that was the grave that he had dug for Dolores Davis.
If you guys would see this shit, you need to post a picture of this shit.
I have one, yeah.
Okay. I can't understand it. This grown man taking a picture of himself. He had, like, a doll mask on. He's wearing fucking full, I don't know, Mary Widow type outfit from what I remember. He's down in a grave.
Yeah, that was the grave that he dug for her. And then he gets down in it. Like, he had the Polaroid and he had, like I said, he had, the little clicker thing, like, on the wire so he could take a picture of himself.
Yeah.
That's
just creepy.
Yeah, and he took a bunch of pictures of her as well, like her dead body, like all tied up and stuff. Now, at this point, like I said, the thing that everybody says about Dennis Rader is like, oh, the dog catcher or whatever. Now, at this point, this is where he gets that job. Like about 4 months, like after he killed Dolores Davis, he gets the job as a compliance and animal control officer in Park City. So this is basically, you're the guy that goes around making sure everyone is complying with these stupid little rules, like how long your grass can be and your dog's not on a leash and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And according to pretty much everyone, this guy was like a total petty tyrant. Yeah. And would, he would just like hassle people for the stupidest, like minor shit, like all the time.
He took his job seriously. They gave him a job. Yeah. He took that shit fucking seriously.
Yeah. Now, there were several complaints against him. And honestly, I think like a couple of people even sued him. Yeah. But the problem was, and also he was sexually harassing a woman that worked in the same office as him. But the fucked up thing was that he was her superior. So every complaint that she made would just go back to him. So he was just kind of like, nope. And he would just like throw it out. I'm like, who allows that to happen?
What he was doing, he was going out on the road. And if he found cute women and where they lived, he'd go over there and he'd measure their grass. And fuck with them about shit like that. He fucked with one woman about her dog and nearly drove her fucking crazy. Yeah. Okay. And
he had her dog put to sleep. Yeah. Jasmine was the dog's name.
Yeah, and it's because she was a good-looking woman.
She was a good-looking woman, and he didn't like it that she had her boyfriend moved in. Yeah. And he even said, she was on a couple documentaries too, where she even said that he would just like harass her all the time. He would look in her windows, and he would like say, "Oh, well, you just need to get rid of that guy, and all of this will stop."
Well, he would go in there and kill her, though.
He said that shit. Yeah. And he had her dog put to sleep, too.
Yeah, I don't understand that shit. I would have gone to the feds or something with that.
It sucks because it's like, it seems like there's not a lot you can do in that situation. Like, I'm sure there's people you could report it to, but it's like, would they do anything?
Nowadays, you can just get a lawyer. And fucking,
That's fucked up.
And he would have vanished instantly. Yeah. Just that people weren't really, this is pre-internet era. Yeah. And people didn't really know how to deal with problems with the state that well. Yeah. If somebody from the state comes and fucks with you, you could just go in there and Google it. How do I deal with this bitch? Yeah. And fucking you'll get an answer. Get you a lawyer, go to this law firm right here, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, they can't do that. People can't harass you for that kind of stuff.
Although, honestly, like...
and everyone has a camera now. Everyone has a cell phone. So she could have easily recorded
in that way, I think things are a lot better now because... even if no one does anything about it, it's like at least you can document what the people are fucking doing all the time. Because apparently that's what this dude did. If he liked you or thought of you as like a project, a potential project or a victim, like he would fuck with you. Like your grass, your hose is the wrong color. Mm-hmm. Your dog is not on a leash. He would do shit like that. Like I said, petty tyrant kind of shit.
That was back in the day when dudes thought they could do that. It's because she was a woman by herself. Yeah. If there was a man around there, he'd have whipped that dude's ass. Yeah. That's what would happen. Yeah. Right.
So now, like I said, he hasn't killed anybody for a while, because many years went by. Now, what brought him back out of the woodwork again was this guy named Robert Beatty. He was a lawyer in Wichita, and he was concerned that people had started to forget about the BTK killer because it had been such a long time since he had killed anybody. So he's like, well, I'm going to write a book about this, just to keep his name in the news. Now, apparently, Dennis Rader got mad that someone else was going to be taking the glory away from him because nobody knew it was him at this point. So he's like, this other guy is writing a book about me. I want to tell my story. So they think that's kind of what brought him back out into, the light again and got him to communicate again. So, at this stage, January 2004, it was the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders. So the Wichita Eagle, the newspaper, ran like a big series like about the killings and like reminding people about it and about the upcoming book and everything like that. So Dennis is like, okay, well, I need to do something to kind of bring attention back on myself. So March 17th, he mails a letter to the Wichita Eagle. Now the what do you call it? The address line, like on the envelope, he called himself Bill Thomas Kilman, BTK.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Yeah. And in this envelope, he had photocopied photographs that he had taken of Vicky Wegerly at the murder scene. And he also had photocopied her driver's license. So he put that in there. So they knew that it was actually the killer. He signed it with his little BTK symbol that he made up. Because like I said, he's trying to do some Zodiac shit. He's trying to brand himself.
Yeah.
As fucked up as that is. So after this letter, which got forwarded to the FBI, he sends a second letter. This was in May of 2004. He sends this to KAKE-TV, the ABC affiliate in Wichita. And this, he's trying to be the Zodiac for real. He sends like a word puzzle kind of thing with his little signature on it. Nobody has ever been able to figure out what the word puzzle is. I don't know if it makes any sense or anything like that. Yeah. So they couldn't figure that out, but they did confirm that it was from him. About a month later, they found a package that was taped to a stop sign in the middle of Wichita. And inside this package, there was a letter talking about the Otero murders. And he had drawn a sketch of Josephine Otero, the little girl that he had left hanging in the basement. So he had left a drawing of that in there also. And there was he called it "The Sexual Thrill Is My Bill." That's what he called it. And this was where
How edgy.
Yeah.
Quite an edgelord.
That's what I mean. All of these serial killers edge, and I fucking hate edgelords.
Yeah.
Just knock it off.
Yeah.
So this is the letter also where he sent the thing with the chapter titles for a biography about him, I guess. Because like I said, he was really mad that somebody else was writing a book about him and he wasn't gonna, because he hadn't killed anybody for a long time at this. Right. But this is 2004. He hadn't killed anybody that they know of since 86, 80 or 91 or whatever. So it's yeah. So there was that whole thing. So then about another month and a half later, there's another package, and this was found in the book return of the Wichita Public Library. Now this had a letter in it that said, "I have spotted a female that I think lives alone and or is a spotted latchkey kid." I don't know what that
What does that mean?
Yeah, latchkey kid. That's usually a little kid that their parents aren't home after school.
What does spotted mean? Yeah,
spotted like a leopard or spotted like you spotted her. I don't know. Like I said, the dude can't write. Yeah. He's retarded. He says, "I just got to work out the details. I'm much older, not feeble. I have to conditions myself carefully. Yeah. Also, my thinking process is not as sharp as it uses to be. Uses to be. I think fall or winter would be just about right for the hit. Got to do it this year or next. Time is running out for me." Now, in this letter, he also claimed that he had killed this 19-year-old guy named Jake Allen. Now, when they looked into this, Jake Allen had actually killed himself by laying on train tracks. Why you would want to kill yourself like that, I don't know, but fuck, that's fucked up.
Bad way of going.
But they determined later that was a suicide and this was a fake thing, but he was taking credit for that. Now,
well, I got a question.
What's that?
He says that his thinking isn't as clear as it used to be when he was young. Is that what he said?
Yeah. Or his condition.
What is he talking about?
Maybe he's talking about his physical condition.
Because I'm nearly 50, and I think a lot more clearly than I did as a teenager. I mean, come on.
I think he was talking about his physical condition. Like I said, that's why he started going after older women in the later years, because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to fight them.
He's not a 70-year-old man or an 80-year-old man.
Yeah, he's only 40. He's younger than me at this point.
Yeah, what the fuck is he talking about?
No.
Maybe he's 50.
No, I think he was older than that, actually, because he was 45 in the 80s, the late 80s, when he did that one murder. So by this point, this is 2004. So he's considerably older.
Let me tell you, young whippersnappers, something. I'm coming up on 50. And actually, my thinking is more clear and more accurate than it was when I was in my 20s. It was easy to fool me in my 20s.
Because a lot of the bullshit falls away.
A lot of the bullshit falls
when
away.
you get older.
You realize what you've been lied to about a lot of
Well,
stuff.
and you can focus better.
Right.
I feel like.
Right.
I don't think I
don't know what
started.
this fucker's talking about.
I don't think I really started to focus all that well until I was in my late 30s, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what this fucker's talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Old people sometimes are not mentally sharp, but there's a lot of other factors that cause them not to be mentally sharp. Illness is one of them. They're in bad physical shape. They're not thinking about anything outside their own illnesses and their own fucking plummet towards the grave. If you know what I'm talking about. If you got bad health, bad fucking heart problems or bad diabetes at 70, like my dad, you get kind of like mentally, they're not thinking about the same things we are. So what the fuck is this guy talking about? He's talking out his ass.
I think when he says condition, I think he means physical condition.
Okay.
Because like I said, that's why he was going after older women. Because he couldn't, I think he was worried that he wouldn't be able to restrain younger women anymore because they would fight him.
Well, he was in bad physical condition. He didn't work out. He wasn't a physical guy, Yeah.
But yeah, so, all right.
Yeah, I mean... look at guys like fucking Sylvester Stallone. He's 70-something years old. That fucker's ripped. He's fucking huge.
Yeah.
It's just because, Dennis, you're weak, man. That's all it is, bro.
Well,
you
started out like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, you got to be to do shit like this.
Yeah.
So, in October of 2004, there was another BTK drop. This was a manila envelope that was left in a UPS box. It was found by a UPS worker. This had like a bunch of cards in it that had like, it had like pictures of kids and women, and he had like kind of pasted them together so it looked like they were bound up and they had like fucking ligatures on them and shit like that. Also, he had written a poem threatening one of the main investigators on the BTK case. Also, he had written like an autobiography, but all of the shit in there was untrue.
Right.
So he was like trying to, like he lied about his birth year. He lied about who his father was. He lied about where he lived. All this other kind of shit. Now, the cops weren't really sure if it was factual or not, but they said, well, here's what we're going to do. The FBI advised them. They said, just play along and keep him communicating because eventually he will make a mistake.
He did.
Yeah, and he did. So the FBI were actually really smart in that. They just said, don't offend him. Just keep communicating. Keep like playing into his narrative, and eventually he will fuck up and we will catch him. Which is exactly what happened.
He got lax.
So there was another drop in December of 2004. It was a package and it was like leaning against a tree in a Murdoch Park, and he opened it. And there was like a doll in there that had like a little plastic bag over his head and shit like that. He was really into like putting little packages with dolls and like leaving them with like its little hands and feet tied together. And on the feet, he had tied the driver's license, like Nancy Fox's driver's license, to the feet of this doll that had the shit on it. Yeah. So the guy that found the package, contacted the police and contacted the TVs and everything like that. Now, at this stage, Dennis has become president of the church council. Again, no one suspects a thing.
Yeah.
Just think he's a normal dude. So 2005, like early 2005, he leaves another package. He puts it inside a Special K cereal box because I think he thought that was funny, like serial killer cereal. Because he always left stuff in, like, a couple times he left stuff in, like, cereal boxes. Like, one time it was a Post Toasties box, and this time it was a Special K box.
Maybe he didn't know that there was a different spelling.
I'm not, maybe he thought that was the same thing. He's like, oh, serial killer, I'm the Frosted Flakes killer. I'm the Captain Crunch. That's what I am. What the fuck? I don't know. He's retarded. But, like I said. So, he makes the package, he writes BTK on the Special K box with all the stuff in it, and then he wrote bomb on it as well. And then he throws it into the bed of a pickup truck in a Home Depot parking lot that belonged to one of the employees of the Home Depot. Now, the employee just saw this shit in his truck and like threw it out.
Yeah, he's like,
because
fuck
it's
your
like
bomb.
it's like garbage. He didn't like look at it. It's like a fucking empty. He thought it was an empty cereal box, so he threw it away. Now, a couple days later, they realized that he had left this thing there, and they were able to dig it out of the trash and find what was in it. Now they actually looked at the surveillance tape because I don't think, even though Dennis had worked for ADT for many years, I don't think he realized that there's fucking security cameras everywhere these days. So they actually saw him putting it in there, but he was too far away. They couldn't tell who he was. Right. But by measuring the the distance between the wheels of the car that they thought he had been driving, they thought it was probably a Jeep Cherokee, which it was. So
yeah, nowadays they'll get your ass from fucking gait recognition. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Your walk can give you away.
Well, yeah, because everyone has a distinctive one.
All right.
But like I said, at this stage, it's early 2005. They saw him on the tape putting the box into the thing, but he was too far away to identify. Yeah. So, so at this stage, he says this box, the Special K box, had a bunch of shit about it, about who his intended victims were. I picked out this person, that person. He also said, I live in a 3-story house. It's rigged with bombs to explode if anybody comes in there. And everyone was like, yeah, sure. Tell us another one. Now, this was the point in the Special K box. I love this. He asked the detectives working on the case. This is hilarious to me. If I send you something on a floppy disk,
yeah, this is fucking fantastic.
Will you be able to tell where it came from, or will you be able to identify?
No, of course not. We would.
And they
never
said, now
know.
answer me in a classified ad, in the Wichita Eagle, give my with my name, his Rex or whatever, buy an ad in there and tell me if it's okay.
We would never know who you were.
Right.
Never.
And that's the funny thing, is that he was such a cop groupie that he thought the cops would be nice to him.
He thought cops
or would tell him the truth.
He thought cops couldn't lie. He was like, no, tell
the truth. He's a dummy.
Now tell the truth,
Yeah, he's like, don't
Scouts
lie.
Honor.
And they're like, yeah, okay.
Scouts
totally
honor, right? Yeah, you can't track me through. Oh, we could never track you. Bitch, that mother, they're going to use metadata. Metadata.
Of course.
Fucking crazy.
He was fucking stupid. I know that. Well, like I said, he was getting up there in age, and it's he didn't know how floppy disks were.
Oh, fucking boomers.
And shit like that.
Fucking boomers.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, run an ad and tell me if it'll be all right, because I'm going to send you some shit on a floppy disk. Now, there was another drop in a cereal box. This was found on January 25th, 2005. And this was he had sent a postcard to the TV station saying, hey, there's where this box is, because nobody had found it. And it was another cereal box. It was Post Toasties. And it was he had left it on this sign. I've seen pictures of it. He left it, and it had been there for a while. So I guess he had to send a postcard to tell him to go find it, because nobody had found it. And it had the same kind of thing. It had the doll in it that had the little girl that got hung. Then there was another postcard came on February 3rd. That was to the TV station. And the return address was from Hap Cakeman, who I guess was some character that TV station had used to use back in the old days. And he said something about, sorry about your little newscasters. Oh, they've had colds or something like that. And he's like, sorry about your colds. And then he said something about, I'm waiting for the newspaper, to tell me if it's a go. I'm running a test, with the disc and all this other kind of shit. Because he thought he was fucking important and shit. So then there was another drop on February 16th. This had a letter and a piece of jewelry, presumably belonging to one of the victims, and the infamous floppy disk. It was a little purple disc, and it was titled Test Floppy for WPD Review, Wichita Police Department. So even though they had run an ad in the paper that said, Rex, it will be okay. That's what it was supposed to say. If he couldn't be tracked. So they ran the ad that said that. And then as soon as they got the disc, they were like, woohoo! Yeah. And then they found in there, they looked at the metadata, and in one of the, it was a Word document or something like that had been deleted. The metadata led them right back to the Christ Lutheran Church and the username Dennis. So all they did was Google Dennis, Christ Lutheran Church. He was the head of the church council, so they put his stupid ass under surveillance.
All they have to do is just fucking go to the fucking church.
And then as soon as they drove...
named Dennis? Oh, yeah. He
runs the shit.
Yeah.
They Googled it.
There you go.
They Googled it.
Yep.
And then they drove past his house and saw that he had a Jeep Cherokee, and they were like, "Oh man."
Yeah.
And then so they, like I said, they put him under surveillance because that's circumstantial. That's not quite enough.
Yeah, you can't get a conviction on
arrest
that.
him.
Right.
Now, interesting. Now, here's something that is a little bit controversial. Now, some sources at the time said that his daughter turned him in. That is not the case. What ended up happening, very much like in the Golden State Killer case, was that the cops subpoenaed her pap smear from when she was in college.
Damn.
And took DNA from that.
Yeah.
And then matched it to DNA from him.
Man.
And so they knew that's who it was. That's how they did it. Because she was on there saying, that's kind of fucked up. It's like, that was... She's like, now everybody knows about my fucking pap smear, so thanks. Because they didn't ask her. Right. She didn't know. So she didn't turn him in. They just used her DNA, like, without her knowledge. They subpoenaed one of her medical records from the college. So they knew it was him, so they had the arrest warrant. So he's coming home February 25th, 2005. He's coming back to his home, like, on his lunch break or whatever, and they all swarm on him and arrest him. Now, as soon as they put him in the car, he didn't put up a fight, anything. He seemed to know that he was busted. So as soon as he gets in the car, he says, hello, Mr. Landwehr, who was the name of the guy that was stalking him. And he says, hello, Mr. Rader.
Yeah, and of course, he's going to fucking start thinking, oh, the adventure begins. Now I finally get my recognition.
Yeah. Now, when they first, put him in the room, he played dumb. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an upstanding citizen, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But once they told him about the disc and the DNA, then they couldn't shut him up.
Right. I still have this sexual problem.
Yeah. Then they couldn't shut him up. He talked for hours and hours and hours, like 30 hours or something like that.
Yeah, he was getting all chummy with the cops. He was trying to be a cop. He thought that he and the cops were on the same team.
Yeah.
And that they worked together.
He was astonished that they had lied to him about the floppy disk thing.
You lied to me? That's
and they were a
violation of honor.
Duh, we were trying to catch you, you stupid motherfucker. What do you think this is?
That's dishonest.
We were cool with you going around strangling people? It's our job to put you in jail.
You have to understand something. That's dishonest. A man has to be a man of honor. I asked him, swear, pinky swear, that you can't,
pinky swear,
that you can't track me through this, can you? They lied to me.
Yeah,
that's unacceptable.
He was very upset.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
He was very upset that they had lied to him about.
Police should never be liars.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. That's just that just shows how stupid this motherfucker was. That he actually thought the cops would be like, yeah, send us a floppy disk. We totally can't trace that.
We can't trace that. Yeah.
Retard. It's like, is he really that dumb? Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So after that, they got him. He started confessing to everything. They went and searched his house. They found photos that he had taken of the victims. They found shit that was taken from the people's houses. So obviously they knew who the fuck this was. Like I said, the horrifying thing was that his family were completely blindsided by this. They had no fucking idea that this dude was BTK. They had been living with him all this time, and they had no idea. His wife actually filed for emergency divorce because apparently that's a thing.
Right.
And they granted it immediately. She was just like, "What the fuck? I can't." And so she just disappeared. And I don't fucking blame her.
No.
Like I said, I've seen Carrie has been in the media talking, but her mom has not been. And like I said, I don't blame her because I would not want any part of that bullshit. No way. So that whole thing happened. Now she ended up, interestingly, the house where they lived, there was all these kind of legal battles about it because they were going to put it up for sale, for some, it wasn't that much. It was $57,000 or something it wasn't a big house. It wasn't a shack or anything like that, but it was just a little modest house. And they put it up for auction. And somebody actually offered $90,000, just to be a good Samaritan, because they thought that it would go to the wife, right? But then there was all this contention about, well, we don't think she should. We think the victims should get it because the victims had sued They knew they weren't going to get any monetary reward because he is indigent at this point, but they wanted to ensure that he wasn't going to make any money off of his story, like by selling it to newspapers or books or whatever. So that was why they did that, to like forestall that. They didn't really think they were going to get any money out of him. But so there was this whole legal thing about the house, and like, we don't want the wife to get it, we want the victims to get it, blah, blah, blah. So there was this whole kind of thing. Eventually, they ended up just fucking raising the shit. So it's like, it's not even there. They just tore it down. It's just a lot now. If you see, there's a documentary with Carrie, the daughter, and she actually goes to the lot, like with the host of the show or whatever. And one of her, it's creepy because like one of her sleds that she had when she was a kid is still like in the backyard.
Damn.
Like she's like, oh my God, that's mine. And there was like a shovel back there. She's like, I think that was my dad's shovel. And it's just like left there. And I was just like, I wonder if probably somebody's stolen it at this point after they
auction
saw
that shit off on eBay.
That's what I mean. I was actually going to look on eBay to see. I said, that's probably on there now. And I said, no, it'll depress me too much. I'm not going to. But yeah, so like I said, so Dennis Rader, he actually was going to plead not guilty at first, but then his family talked to him and were like, dude, just plead guilty. We know it was you.
You can't fight that.
It's like, don't put the families through that. So he did actually come out later and plead guilty. At which point, that's where the very famous, video of him that's like 46
his confession, man,
talking about it. That's what that was. Like, that was the sentencing.
His confession is fucking like, it's epic in a certain way. I mean, you have to understand, I'm suffering problems, and I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's what I mean.
It's
like
fucking ridiculous.
He almost seems like
it's fucking ridiculous.
He seems like a non-person.
Yeah.
Like he seems like a robot in a skin suit.
It's a joke.
He really does come across like that.
If any of you guys out there are fucking serial killers, fucking knock that shit off, and fucking don't think that fucking people are gonna understand that shit. They don't. They fucking hate that shit.
Normal people don't understand that because we don't think like that. I hate to be the one to newsflash. I hate to be the one to inform you, but normal people don't think that way, and they don't understand why you think that way.
Stop what you're doing.
Right, just knock it off. Knock it off immediately.
Fucking
but yeah,
ridiculous.
so as I said, since all of his crimes had been committed prior to 1994 when the death penalty was reinstated in Kansas, he was not eligible for the death penalty, even though the prosecutors did try like hell to try this, like maybe he committed something after 94 that we can, give him a death penalty on, but they never could find anything. They don't think that he committed any more than the 10 crimes that he is that he was charged with and that he was convicted of, because they didn't find any other stuff in his house that, that suggested that he had killed anyone else. They found stuff from those victims because he took souvenirs, but they didn't find stuff from any other victims. And there were like no other unsolved crimes that were the same MO that they think were him. Yeah, I'm not saying that he might not have committed, but they're pretty sure that those 10 are the ones that he committed, and those were the ones he was convicted of. So,
from what I remember, because I looked into this years ago, I think after his main stream of fucking homicides, he went dormant for a long time. He only did those, 2 more, and he got caught.
Yeah.
He was coming out of retirement. It seemed like to me that he wanted to get caught.
A lot of them seem like they do.
Right.
Maybe it just gets old, like after a while, because you're always worried you're going to get caught.
I always had this, and
you're sick of it.
Yeah, I had this fucking theory that he thought he was going to get caught, and when he didn't, he was like, "Well, you know what? I got to get caught because I can't take credit for what I've done."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in a weird way, it's like they want to get caught so they can grandstand and take credit.
Yeah.
It seemed like he got bored.
I think that was kind of the whole thing about, because it seemed like he didn't kill people when he had other shit going on in his life. Like, I have a job, I have a new baby. When he had shit going on, he was able to like push it back into the background and not do it.
It seemed like he got old and bored. He says, "You know what? Maybe I'll resurface and I'll kill a couple more."
Yeah.
And then and then I'll start talking, and then we'll get caught, and I can cash in on all this. That's what it seemed like.
That's probably exactly what his thought process was.
Because it didn't. Because he got away with it, really.
For a long time.
For a long time.
That's the shitty thing.
Right, he got away for a long time.
Yeah, they didn't catch him until, like I said, his first crime was 1974. They didn't catch him until 2005.
And I remember back in those days where he got caught, and I was just like going over this case, and I was like, this dude is acting like he wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
At a certain level.
Like I said, I think a lot of them do after a while, especially if they haven't been caught for a long time.
Right.
That's got to, I mean, even if you're a sociopath, it has to weigh on you. It has to be stressful being worried about getting caught all the time. I would think, but I don't know. They don't have the same thought process.
His fucking family his kids were grown and gone.
Yeah.
He's with a wife. Away. Yeah, he's with his wife. Maybe the marriage really isn't, it's not exciting to him anymore. And his job and shit, you know what I mean, it's not really a big deal. So he's like, well, it's time for me to finally cash in on all my credits. I gotta fucking take credit for this shit, so the world will know that I was the BTK.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to sit around just getting old and fucking collecting a retirement check. That's what it seemed like to me. Now, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but...
I don't know, that sounds
it just, on, the timing seemed suspicious.
Because he seems very narcissistic.
Right. Well, I want everybody looking at me. I want to go out in a fucking blaze of glory.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of thing.
Because he seems, again, like one of those dudes that they're unremarkable.
Yeah.
They're not really good at anything.
Right.
They don't stand out.
Right.
And that's the only way they know how to draw attention to themselves.
That's what it seemed like.
Is by doing that.
Yeah.
That's like the only way they can become famous.
So I remember when it was going down, man, I was like, what the fuck? Why did this dude do this? He definitely wasn't trying to get away with this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to get away with it.
Well, like I said...
Because he did get away with it, basically. He should have just kept his fucking mouth shut.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, look at the fucking Zodiac. He wrote all kind of letters, and they never caught that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Although I'm kind of hoping they will now that they're doing all the DNA shit like they caught the Golden State Killer. So I'm kind of hoping because I'm curious to know who that.
He's dead.
I think he's probably dead by now.
Yeah.
Although I'm really curious to find out who the fuck that was.
Yeah. He's dead though.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
But yeah, so this motherfucker did get caught, and he is still alive. He got a minimum of 175 years in prison. They said they wanted to make it so that he would never be eligible for parole because of their legal thing. So they were like, he wouldn't be eligible for parole until 2180, which I don't think that bitch is gonna live.
He'd be like 180 years old,
right? Unless he like gets a cyborg body or something like that, which I don't think anyone's gonna give him that. But yeah, so still alive, but hopefully not for that much longer. And that will do it for our discussion of the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. Hope you enjoyed it, if that's the right word to use. Remember, if you like the show, to like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast. Got some neat stuff for our patrons. You get early access to the shows. Every now and then we put up like little extra videos and shit like that, so go check it out. If you don't like Patreon, but you'd still like to financially support the show anyway, you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar. It's a little button, and you can go to our PayPal account and give us like a one-time donation. Remember to check out our last movie retrospective, which was Silent Scream. Also check out our Zazzle page at zazzle.com/13o'clock. We've got some new shirt designs on there that you might want to check out.
Run with KoolCon. I'm running with KoolCon right now. Check that shit out. Look,
he is. Also, check out my Giallo Games store on thegamecrafter.com.
Yeah, it's a good game.
I have a bunch of games on there that you can check out and buy if you would like to. And that will do it for episode 134. We will see you next time. Bye.